Excellent, thank you. Welcome, Winchester, to the planning board meeting on the 5th of March, 2019. This evening, most of our meeting will be given over to discussing upcoming town meeting articles with town council. Before then, we have a few items that we'll be talking about that weren't on the agenda, but they're just pretty, well, they're not minor, but we're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, which may be on this Springtown meeting's warrant. And we have a ZBA permit that we will be reviewing at the end. So without further ado, why don't I, Brian, you're doing something? I could turn it over to Maureen if you want to talk about the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust article.
Well, as I said in a memo to Brian, I'm hoping you can offer some information because I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts. Do you remember that email? Yes.
I do, but I don't.
So, okay, I'll keep it really broad, but we really do need something. I know the select board's already discussed it in public at their meeting, and they did give the green light to go ahead, and Mike Betancourt and Lisa Wong are taking the lead on coming back with a proposal to create a housing trust. The advantage of the housing trust is enabled through a state law, and of all people, our very own John Goldson is the expert on that and has written a nice little pamphlet on how housing trusts work in Massachusetts. So we've got expertise right here. We'd really like to move forward on it quickly. It would go to this Springtown meeting, so that's why we're trying to figure out exactly how to structure it. But the idea of the trust is you can take your pick, quasi-independent or quasi-governmental, but it is somewhat independent. But the law does lay out which some of the seats, but not all of the seats, that would be held by the members who actually control the trust. So if a trust is created, the trust has the ability to move quickly, and that's the key concept, basically within the housing market, to buy what would be designated ultimately an affordable house, or affordable unit. It could be a condo in theory, but we'd like to see the ability of the town to go into the market and actually buy some of the houses as they come on the market, rather than just try to deal with getting affordable housing through the inclusionary housing approach. So in other words, we shouldn't just have to build our way toward the affordable housing, but we should also be in a position to create affordable units out of existing housing. So that's what the trust is all about. The select board definitely, very clearly, assuming this all goes forward, we'd have to see it in greater detail. We're all working against a deadline, but they definitely would welcome our support as a co-sponsor of the warrant article. So that's really all I can offer for the moment, except to ask if there's anybody. I'm sure I can't really answer many questions, but if there are any concerns, or if these are broad strokes, but there is a general law, maybe, or a mass general law. Maybe Brian could get us that. And Jen's really good brochure, which I actually did read.
So
Yes.
do you mean that town meeting has to vote it in?
Yes.
Yeah.
That seems kind of
Yeah.
silly.
Well,
Well, they have to
that's
give.
Why
They have to
would they
give.
not
I
want?
love that.
because it's,
Some town meeting could potentially want to be involved in every sale, or should we
That
do
would be
this?
impossible. The whole point is to be able to
Clearly,
buy
and that's why
stuff.
these trusts.
it's,
That's why
it's,
the trusts are much
yeah, I
better.
mean, town meeting would probably okay the creation of the trust, but after that, they wouldn't have any say.
Correct.
It would just be the trust which does it. We actually, the
good.
Housing Partnership Board several weeks ago had a really good information session, which is on, I believe WinCam recorded it, and it's actually available on YouTube.
No, watch it. Yeah, I couldn't.
There it is. He's got it.
And
Beautiful. Can you
and-
just make a note of this for Liz and for all of us? Then we'll
Section
have it.
55C.
It's chapter 44, section 55C.
yeah,
44, and then section 55C.
And it's only to acquire to dispose of town property is not included in part of this,
That's
correct?
correct.
So
It
to
goes-
dispose, it has to go to town meeting, so.
To dispose of it, I mean, the key is being able to purchase it quickly, and then it goes through the standard checks and balances of the town when it disposes of property. But I highly recommend those who are interested to go to WinCam's site, and there was a special,
Right, you sent it to us.
yeah, and for those out in TV land, we had someone from the, I forgot, no, the Mass Housing Alliance, am I getting that wrong? She was an expert on this. She went through a number of different municipalities and how they use the funds. And there are a variety of ways of setting up the trust structure that she went to. So it was really informative. So personally, I'm in favor of this. It does, we'll have to see what structure the select board comes up with, but
Right.
So they're the ones who would decide that?
Well, it's their warrant article. We can
Yeah.
certainly say if we're going to be co-sponsors, we want X,
Yeah.
Y. That's not my view. My
And
view
obviously,
is
until the actual warrant article comes out,
yeah,
I mean,
we need a draft. Yeah.
you need a draft, forget that, yeah, if you're gonna co-sponsor it, then,
We wanna
or
see.
maybe the answer is not necessarily co-sponsoring in terms of timing, and it's just a strong recommendation. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
We can always
essentially the same
recommend at
exact
the
thing.
last minute, but this would, if it goes to the town, then our name would be on
Yeah.
it as,
Yeah.
Do they have to say who the board seats are before it goes to
Yes.
town
They-
meeting?
Yeah.
they
It's
would,
Part of the warrant article.
That's the big
they
question.
would tell you how they are going to set up the actual
Yeah, but I don't
trust,
think
And
name,
they're
I can't imagine
Not
names.
names, but like if they
No,
wanted someone
positions.
from,
the positions,
There
yeah.
actually are
There's a board- yeah, there's a
some
board of trustees up
required,
here.
Yeah, I
but
see
some
that.
are not.
They should
Yeah,
call the
it's-
Probably
board,
board trustees,
no
yeah.
less than 5.
There's a lot of flexibility in
Right.
how you set it up, so,
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
that could go in our packets for next week, and we might have more information then, just a print version of that, and then we'll.
If it means anything, I haven't heard anybody in town that is against it
yeah.
at
Well,
all.
the great part about it is, I'll go on. So the question is, where does the
But
money
not too
come
long.
from for the trust? And then, no, I mean, I'll just be brief. But where does the money come from for the trust? In communities that have passed Community Preservation Act, that's where a lot of that money goes.
But we
So
don't have it.
that's
The first
something to
question
think
that many
about.
people
Right.
ask.
can they
So-
also take out loans? Is it an entity that could take out a loan to buy something?
Don't know.
That's beyond, I think, our knowledge here. The nice thing is they can certainly take donations of money, they
Yeah,
can
they
take donations of property. I mean,
And the big one is where this town could go at this point is when you get a project where there are, let's call it $1.5 million condo units that we're getting because we do negotiate those in new construction. We might be better off taking the money, which we've never done, and the Housing Partnership hasn't wanted us to do because they say, well, we can never buy anything.
Right.
But instead, then take the money, move that into the trust, and then the trust can buy 2 houses, 2 real houses, or 2 like a flat or a
Yeah.
duplex.
Or, I mean,
So
some communities, essentially, they will make up the difference in the mortgage between what a person, the limit that, for affordability. And so instead of the town putting out $1 million and buying the house, they'll buy the house, or they'll make up, so if someone can only come in at a certain level, I'm making up numbers here,
Yeah.
say 500,000, and the town can put in X amount over that, so the town doesn't have to put all of its money into a single property, they just provide the delta between what the person can pay and what the property is going to be sold as. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. You can leverage it that way.
And
So-
guess what? Those actually count as units under Chapter
Yeah.
40B.
Yeah.
So there's that
So-
too. There's a lot to me.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So why don't we try to get language from the select board
I think we're
by
all.
the time of our
yeah.
next meeting?
Yeah,
So we
Brian.
can,
Does Brian,
See what
Brian,
Lisa's
will you
got.
ask for that?
Yep.
yep. Okay, so that was our first,
We're not going to question then Heather's term, but
Yeah.
any update on Washington at Swanton?
well, can we, just
Oh, go to Heather.
yeah, Heather, you wanted to
I
say
wanna make
something
sure I
about the
have
budget?
Oh, so in the process, Dee and I both kind of tag teamed the process for the override. And part of the budget that we all talked about for going forward, if the override passed, the things that we recommended to the town manager, which then was relayed back to the select board, was an economic development director a zoning enforcement officer, an assistant town planner. With the override, currently, I don't remember exactly what is in the town manager's budget that she submitted to FinCom.
I don't know the money, but I believe it was ZEO, was what was in,
That's it?
that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
in
We'll have to
the-
double check what
I'm-
she actually delivered to FinCom.
Okay.
We have
Well, I
to,
think the manager's budget was what, I mean, that got sent out when she finished it,
Mhm.
so I don't know.
But it was
if-
within 24 hours of them changing the number.
Oh,
So anyway,
All right.
I'm not exactly sure what of
All
our
right.
budget she kept and what she didn't keep. But we do know that the zoning enforcement director was pulled out by the select board.
Pulled out.
Was pulled out of the budget for the override by the select board, not, and directed to the town manager to pull it out. So with that in mind, and the zoning enforcement officer is either in or out, I think she said it was out. They pulled it out also.
well, I think the only thing that's what I'm saying, from the manager, I thought it was just one position, no matter what.
And, but she did up our consultant money so that
Right.
we could, either support Brian through, instead of doing
Other
assistant, we could do it
consultants,
through consultant work
Right.
instead of through an assistant town manager, so we don't have the
It's
overhead.
cheaper, yeah,
Yeah.
it is
So
cheaper.
she did include our part-time support through, raising our funding, but we, in discussions, if everyone here was at the meeting for the master plan, and this question came up about, okay, so we're going for an override, do we not have an economic development director? It came up in town meeting, right? And you heard, town manager Lisa Wong's answer, that the select board have said that she's going to do it, but it's not really realistic to have her do that, and then everything else that is required of her. So I spoke to the town manager briefly. I think we should go to FinCom and bring it back and see what FinCom thinks. Take it out of the select board's hands and see what FinCom thinks about it, because based on the feedback that we're getting from residents and from town meeting, that economic development director is really critical.
And where would it come from?
The money
Yeah,
would come inside of the money, the FinCom
instead of the
would figure it out.
consultants? No, it doesn't, it
Meaning
wouldn't
the
come out of
planning
our
board's budget, yeah,
Yeah.
meaning that budget would be upped
Increased.
to include.
Oh, increase it, okay.
Or depending on how, I don't know if we have any preference whether it's under the planning board or if it's under town manager. I just think it's really critical that the planning board go to FinCom and say, we disagreed with the select board's recommendation.
So the idea would be that we would not ask for a ZEO
No,
and
I think
we
we
would
go
just
and we
solely ask for an economic
Oh.
development director.
No, I think both,
Yeah,
I think
don't wanna
both.
give
but I
up on the
think most
ZBA.
likely,
If,
I think realistically, you have to pick one at this point,
and
so.
what would, I mean, previously the board, it was strongly,
Because they're
I
gonna-
think we
they're
present,
probably-
we don't pick. I think we give our presentation to FinCom and say, this is why you need a zoning enforcement officer. This is why you need an economic development director.
I mean, the thing is, we were
Both
looking.
will pay for themselves in some ways, in both
Yeah.
of the positions, so, and go and
we,
see.
I mean,
but
we had
it's
this
not-
discussion at this board previously, and and the majority voted for a ZEO over another position.
That's because the select board asked for it to be removed.
No, this was prior to that.
Prior to
Some of it was also money. The ZEO is a part-time position, so it was like more like, it was probably, it's an $80,000 or $90,000 job, but half-time you're looking
Right.
at, there's no benefits, and it's,
I
you're looking
think
at 40 to
it's
50,
fine
so
as
we're like, well,
part-time.
bang for your buck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that was the conversation.
Right.
If I were FinCom, I would want to know, if you guys really want one of these, which one is it?
the economic development director also didn't fall under us in the budget, it followed
It
under the
it
select
totally
board.
makes sense for it to be under a manager's budget as well. It's, I mean, it's.
But we
it's a-
need that position in a lot of ways to be able to do what we need to do as well.
I think
So-
it makes sense to be under the planning board. That's our purview is
And-
planning, so.
Yeah, but economic development, actually, I mean, I've read about this for so many years, and I would love to see more staff in the planning, so there's no question, and there's a lot we could be doing, but I know it's been a long-standing criticism of what used to be Boston Redevelopment Authority, and now it's Planning and Economic Development or something, but that they actually, that's been a criticism of the BRA, that it was always going out looking for the next big project, and it went it conflicted with the planning interests. Once you're really into the mode of economic development, you can definitely be heading down a different path from the planning vision. And so they're inherently, they can be, or they are, they're inherently different. and there's a
Well,
lot.
I agree with you, but that could also be a reason to keep them with a planner, so that you're
No, I
working
mean, that's
more
what, that's
closely
what,
together.
I think that's what you're saying. You're talking about a community and economic development
which
department, not just a
case-
planning
Right.
department,
Right,
which is.
in which
and
case, maybe it's
semantics
back to
between,
a
you know,
part-time.
When you have
I mean,
one person,
another
it's
half-
really-
It's-
another planner, because we
You're
could
like,
use
this
that number
arm.
2 person, right. Could be doing economic development, but could also be doing, I'd like to see somebody in staff, in-house, who can deal with the design issues as they're coming up.
That's it.
Those are two
Well,
different
That's
skill
extremely
sets,
unique.
though.
If anyone has that, they would be worth.
well, I think, I think if we're going to make the argument to FinCom that we would need to make, they would be much more accepting of an argument saying we need an economic development person. And full-time or part-time, I don't know.
Typically, these are
Full-time.
full-time people with MBAs.
And I would,
typically.
I think that since economic development is part of our focus in the planning
If
department.
it is under planning, we won't have that problem.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
I
It's a-
think-
It's a team, it's a team
Yeah,
effort.
so I think that it would be an addition to the planning department. And you can duke out with this person who gets the nicer chair. But,
Understanding.
so consult
And
with,
how many hours would that be? I mean, I feel really comfortable with zoning enforcement, that can be done successfully part-time. I have the impression economic development also could be done part-time
I
without.
agree.
You do, yeah.
well, the question that the FinCom will then probably say is, do you need, so you just need a half-time economic development person? Do you?
I'd be happy with, or I
be
I
better
lived
than
through a
nothing.
half-time planner for years, so I mean,
Okay,
we
so,
were
so,
way better off
so
with a
we're,
half-time
we're
planner.
comfortable asking for a half-time position?
I think that's where, I think,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think we need to push for a full-time at this point. Brian, would you have any thoughts on it?
At this point, I'm looking obviously for any help, so.
The
this is-
other idea with the economic development director that I came up with, when I was thinking about it, is not having them start right at the start of fiscal year 2020, but have them start a month or two prior to the end of the master plan. So they transition in
So,
as the master plan ideas and concepts are formed, so
They could
then
be
turned
helping us.
over to them.
They could be helping us with the master
Yeah,
plan.
but
if
it's
the right
phase
person.
4 of the master plan that really deals with the economic component of it.
so it's
So working
January,
alongside our consultant versus,
Yeah, no, but so I'm just thinking about.
it just saved money,
so that would be January of 2020, which is
Mhm.
essentially,
6 months in.
I'm fine with it.
okay, starting January.
So it'd be half of a half, part-time.
I'm even thinking number of hours, what if it were, I mean, I'm sorry, I come from the world of there's no money, right? And I've lived it so many
Sure.
years. But what if it were 10 hours a week, 5 and 5, come in
I don't think
2
that's enough.
afternoons a week?
I don't think that's
Oh.
enough. I think
I don't,
part,
I don't, if, I don't know
anything
what,
less than part-time
I
is
don't
not
know
gonna
what
make it.
the number is
Oh,
in terms of how
I'll
much
flip it
part-time
around.
or.
Whatever you get is better than nothing.
I mean,
So I guess I'd be more inclined to think it would be well received, or I'd be inclined, I would guess it could be better received if it were fewer.
As someone who looks for part-time work, I think half-time is something that people,
Yeah,
Oh,
you
of
get,
course, yeah.
low enough and then
It's
it's,
not worth it.
it's not worth a
really a
person's
job,
time. And it wouldn't be worth our time, because they'd have to keep coming up to speed. I mean, that's,
No,
Um,
the argument is
so-
targeted projects, which, I
Oh,
mean,
right.
right, just
Yeah.
you do
Right,
kind of short, sharp, targeted projects here and there,
right, right.
15K here, 15K there,
Mhm.
that's another, I
yeah,
don't know, well, yeah, I
I
don't
don't-
know what we have in terms of time.
yeah, I think we should just.
I just
we-
want to make sure, that's, we're up March 28th for FinCom. That's when we need to
Okay,
go
well, why don't,
visit them. And I believe Ruthie is our point of
Okay.
contact for
Oh, that's
FinCom,
Ruthie?
That'd be really good, Ruthie.
who
So
is a realtor.
could somebody tell us
March
what's
28th, it's a
what-
Thursday.
how economic development is staffed in Lexington's twice as big, Brooklyne's huge.
Okay,
I
so-
mean, what's
Sure,
I
so we'll put
throw
a
a couple together,
Brian,
maybe.
Well,
I
Brian will have
think
to be
no,
ready for
we did that
Have we
last
had-
time meeting.
Yeah, just-
Anyone that had them, it was 1 to 4 people for
Yeah.
comparable towns,
So-
comparable towns. It
That's
was-
in the whole department.
No, 1 to 4 based on, anyone who had an economic
Mhm.
person, they either had 1 to 4 people, 1 to 4 people supporting that
Yeah.
role.
so just to keep us on track here, because we're a little off track,
Yeah.
why don't you take that as
Yeah.
an action item that you will go and pull those numbers out again? I know you, so
Yeah.
it'll be easier for you to pull
And
those out.
Yeah, no, I have 'em.
just to reiterate that we are still, for the record, that we are still wanting that zoning enforcement officer, even though
Yes.
that doesn't come under us, but we
I,
want
I've
that.
got half-time ZEO, half-time Economic Development
Very good,
Director.
okay.
And then we currently already have in the budget, Lisa upped our consulting.
Right,
Yeah,
to,
which
help
we
cover-
really need.
which is, did you
Well,
have a
first we need-
number?
yeah, we need to-
Let's just stick right to, so,
And
okay.
then I have a different question. Are we off that one?
I
just
think
want-
we're off that one.
Real quick, just a
Brian,
short answer. I'm
on it.
really curious to know whatever can be said out loud and in public about where are we with our Swanton Street at Washington Street? Is it, the auction's off, right?
The auction has been canceled.
Right.
I'm trying to think, what can be disclosed and what can't be disclosed, other than the town always wanted a friendly 40B there. That's that's what's trying to be pursued, and the honest truth is I don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh, of course. You never know
Okay.
till it's
But-
over,
but, I
right?
mean,
That lady thinks.
And it's meaning in terms of number or whatever, but
So is the property under agreement?
there's a PNS.
There is, okay. And is there an interest in doing mixed use, or is it all residential?
There's talk, the talk is potentially mixed use,
Mhm.
but
So,
it doesn't,
since
yeah.
somebody, the way this works is people go, developers, builders, go in and see you, it probably makes sense for the board to also give you a sense of what we are interested in. That's why I raise it, because, hey, guys, there's meetings going on, and we should also.
No, and I think I do a fair and equitable job of telling them
Oh,
what
I'm
the
not
board would want.
criticizing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
You're
This
saying
is-
we haven't discussed
Yeah,
it.
we ought to
I-
be, since
Yeah.
there's
Well,
movement going
so-
on, we should be
So
saying
before
something.
we go off on that tangent,
That's
because
a whole
we
other
are
topic.
way off, we should, right now, when is our next meeting? Is it next week?
Yeah.
Why don't we make sure we have we set aside some time to discuss what the board wants?
Exactly, thank you.
So why don't we put that
Are
for,
we talking the sky's the limit, or are we
No, no,
within?
things that we started talking
I know
about
what I
right now
want.
already.
well, hold that thought for one whole week. The other thing that I want to let the viewers out there know is, and this is a public announcement, was that there is a potential 40B on River Street, which was made public last week. I don't have any of the details in front of me, unfortunately, so I can't tell you exactly how big it is. Brian, the proposed developer for the River Street 40B is Engler?
SEB, Engler, yeah. So
SEB.
SEB is the same developer that is still still in court for 416 Cambridge Street across from Whole Foods.
And is that considered a friendly 40B, or are they trying to be friendly, or is this a
He-
40B?
So it's,
Roger,
it's,
just
it's funny, it's funny you should say that, because,
I'll give you 2 minutes on this.
2 minutes,
Just
give me
2.
2 minutes.
Give you 2 minutes and then we have to go.
Yeah, no,
Friendly, not friendly? That's no.
so he has to meet with the manager and myself. The manager was sick, so it was just me, and this was at the end of last week. And he's like, so we're thinking of filing at the end of next week. And I was like quite confused, because I would imagine that we would at least broach the topic of a potential friendly. So, and I was like, well, I guess it's not necessarily a friend, I mean, because, are you gonna go through the LIP, or you're applying to mass housing, like, what are you doing? And he's like, no, we're gonna start with mass housing, and, we're more than happy to open up a, potential LIP application. For us, it doesn't matter a ton. This also doesn't appear to be moving, but
Okay, so you
I
so
could keep
you
talking.
you have 30 seconds
Yeah,
left.
so, but.
We've had this problem
the-
before.
So, we should be, it's totally public in terms of the concept. The full application will clearly be public to everybody. I'm thinking Thursday or Friday is what they said.
And so we won't know if it's friendly or not till,
I think it's already technically, they've already started the traditional 40B process by applying directly to mass housing.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
friendly
And
then.
could I
Okay,
ask,
okay.
and especially with Mina having just arrived, hi Mina, I would love to see something that defines what makes a friendly 40B versus not so friendly. I don't know if, I
So-
don't believe it.
Yeah,
doesn't exist.
definitionally.
It
No,
doesn't
so
exist in
I-
MGL, does it?
I'll,
Well,
no, so because this was the,
Yeah, you've got
oh,
like
it's
10.
still, it is going, okay, so basically, I asked this question to him, really, in your mind, what is the difference between the two? And realistically, the only difference is where you can get money from. So if you're in a traditional 40B going through mass housing, you're more limited, although it's still quite flexible. If you're going through the LIP, you basically are unrestricted in terms of
Local
how you-
initiative process.
Yeah, sorry. It's essentially unrestricted outside of being illegal or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's essentially unrestricted in terms of where you can get your money, where you can get the funding. For a very large 40B developer like SEB, it doesn't really matter.
I thought that friendly meant that they would work with us. Did I make that up?
So, and the last thing, and the last thing, and then we're gonna, the last thing, and then we're gonna move on. I also said that, and
I'm gonna go, could we say,
the-
well, yes and no?
the reality is that he and other 40B developers have had more friendly situations going through a traditional route, meaning it's been a more amicable process, there's been more give and take, and it wasn't adversarial going through a normal process. And they've also had friendly 40Bs that were quite difficult.
So let me just ask last question. It's just, is there any law, any case law, any regulation that establishes friendly? And
And
maybe
that-
Something to do with the funding, but I don't know
But
the answer.
let's put that as a question to be answered next time. We'll make sure that's addressed.
I really want it.
But that,
Right,
that is a
but-
good, but that is a good.
Right,
good
so,
relevant
so
question.
Brian, will you make sure that we get
Brian,
yeah.
to that, your list, you can move on. But Brian, to that list, can you actually look up that area? I thought it was a contaminated area.
It's definitely a industrial area, yeah,
I thought it
so,
was, had
Is it brown- is it brownfields?
similar,
Well, certain, I mean,
similar to the soccer field issue.
okay, so.
yeah, that'll, over the next year, I'm sure we'll figure that out.
No
Okay.
urgency.
So,
Just
moving,
add it to your.
yeah, so moving forward, for those who have just arrived, hi Mina, we are 10 minutes in arrears. That's the wrong word. Anyway, so our next thing on our agenda is subdivision of Highland Avenue. I believe that should be, everything is proper. You can say just yes.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Wait, didn't we have
We-
this last time?
This,
Sign it.
that was put in the packets,
Right.
when we signed the A&R, just to have the final set, and this is the final set that's being signed. It's a fun one, I have markers for everybody, because you're signing 24 pages,
Oh, geez.
so we're gonna do kind of like a
Okay.
succession
We need a motion.
of.
so we need a motion to approve the subdivision.
Subdivision, just a standard, there's, I mean, the hearing's closed. Is there anything more legally we should be doing?
No, it's approving the subdivision, sorry, and, oh, it's already approved, that's right, we approved it, I guess it was a month
That's
ago,
what I
so
wanted.
there you go.
It
So-
just seems so
Endorse it.
long ago.
So we have a motion to endorse the subdivision on the land off Highland Avenue, also known as Abbey Road.
So moved.
We have a-
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I
So this
believe
is
that
gonna take a
was,
minute, so
Yeah, we can talk.
rather
while
than
we
like
do
sit
that.
where you, I think.
You just
stand
put it,
in-
and then we can stand
Yeah.
and walk to it and
Yeah.
take
I
care of it.
believe
Let's
that
keep
was
going,
5-0.
Thank you.
reluctantly.
Some of the ayes came out slowly, tortuously.
So while Brian unrolls that, I did want to say I really appreciate the letter that was sent to the ZBA. I thought it was terrific. I am wondering, and then we had design review committee that actually, thank you, David, for coming, that it was through the design review committee memo that we learned that there was a total redesign, really. It was
For the audience, Maureen's talking
for
about 735 Main Street.
So we had no idea. Staff had no idea. Nobody knew except you guys. How do you like that?
Directly just to us, the health.
It did.
No, that seems a little
And I
odd.
think it does need a follow-up, not from you, but from our good town planner, on
Okay.
how that goes. But anyway.
So, you know,
So the
procedurally.
letter's
Good town
great.
planner.
I assume somebody's starting to sign?
Hopefully.
Okay,
Oh, guys.
So.
One at a
yeah,
time.
No, well, yeah, and then it's just gonna,
Oh.
And you move
well,
the paper?
that's-
yeah, and then just like a
Okay.
succession, like a train.
Okay.
Boom, boom,
Can
boom.
we
Well,
move-
it'll take
Choo-choo.
much longer.
Choo-choo.
I think it's faster to
can we
start
split the
sending.
stack?
Whatever.
Because we just sign, flip the page, sign, flip the
Yeah,
page.
exactly.
Oh,
You just walk around, you just walk along.
Yeah, there's a faster way to do this.
Architect to help you?
sure.
Yeah.
Hey,
We got several here.
Where do you sign?
where are we?
Wait, well, I think they're all
It's gonna organize us.
This is how an
Okay,
architect.
so this
This is
is,
how an architect does it. You start from here and you go like this. Oops,
That one doesn't have anything.
that one doesn't have anything. You just run around the table.
These detail pages.
Okay, if you don't have to do those, then forget those. The ones that you do,
Looks like on the
You
detail.
mean stagger them?
You just stagger them.
you just stagger them, so you can walk down the hall.
I would sign.
Some
Like,
of,
there's no lines, I would still sign anyway.
there are line, well, why don't we pull these out and make sure there aren't lines on the other side?
I don't think so. They
Yes,
would just be on one side.
they're on the other side.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
Oh, they make two lines. I'm serious. You end up walking around the table.
Let me just
So
get
let's,
this.
why don't we do this? Why don't we take half of them and just, let's take Cs, let's move the Ds over here to another stack. Let's see if we can,
Okay, here, we just can move this.
It's up at the top.
Move it, move it, move it.
There it is.
they're all
Okay.
over the place.
Well, at least they're on the page
So I'm just gonna,
and not on the back of the line.
So you just do that.
Oh, my God. That would, no, that would be
They're
a
all in
nightmare.
different
That would be a nightmare.
we need an approved date. We haven't approved and endorsed, but first off, we'll just sign.
We can do that, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
I
do that
can, I
later.
can do that after. I would just start signing.
Here we go.
No, we're just doing them.
I took some
like
intestinal
here,
cord
so-
too, just to get the.
Yeah, but they're all in,
It's right there, sir, over there. And then we'll go this way. Okay, there's more coming.
I brought 5. Yeah.
Yeah, let me move this.
Here's a set right here, so here. So this, no. Hey, Brian? You wanna take these from underneath
45, D6.
and then spread them out over there? Here, he's gonna take them.
Okay.
And then here's a set here we'll sign. Although they just came over ours.
No.
Okay, do you have, and Heather have the first, Maureen's got the third, so we're four. 1, 2, 3. You're on the bottom line.
Okay.
We're leaving them Maureen staggered so you can see them all at the same time.
yeah, one thing I do is I'm making sure that I get all the
Do you know,
numbers.
you see it there, and then you go.
This
over
is,
here.
I can't start with these because they're all in different places.
Yeah, like,
We'll get there in a second.
Just going ever so slightly crazy here.
Yes,
Excuse
okay.
me. Here, I'll trade you. There you go.
Look at your beautiful signature. It's over there on the right.
Yeah.
Your signature kinda looks like mine, Heather.
oh, really?
So these are all in different places, so I'm just leaving them open.
Can't tell which one's which. Both has their initials.
I'm just uniformly using.
They are,
Black one.
they're just, they're in, yeah.
Well, the bills, yeah. I've just been counting them to make sure I get them all, so there's like D5. I just wanna make sure.
Keep going then. It's at the top on there.
Go behind Heather, it's easier.
This way, yeah.
I keep stacking that way, you're gonna have to lengthen your
Sorry.
arm.
January 8th.
Betsy, the last one, some of these?
Yes.
Yes.
If that's true, do you want to just pull them together and just confirm that everything?
Wanna come behind us?
The date is 1/8/19.
Yeah,
two. So this stack.
This is not our best pile.
What?
This is not our best pile. The other one was.
Because you just put it wherever he could think of, he never thought to
There we go.
actually see what he did, right? He did the sheets and then forgot about the signature.
Okay, so I think we're done. Let me make sure.
Are there, so Heather, Mary, are there more over there that are?
Yep, D6, D7, D8, D9.
Betsy, you've got to do this one here.
No, but I didn't know.
That's it.
This is done, this is, no. This is done.
That's what I kept saying.
Paper.
Some Girl Scout cookies.
I know, I thought about bringing some, but I.
Wait, what?
Girl Scout
I haven't
cookies.
eaten them up yet.
No, I still got
David
some
didn't
left.
even know that you had them.
Oh, he didn't have pork, I believe. He doesn't want to. Sugar. It's fine with it. You don't want mine.
Have either of your kids done anything at Winchester Cooperative Field?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, both?
Yeah, well,
We were gonna try just the 3 days of July 4th.
my kids did
Cancer.
Did you get to those, Betsy?
No.
Okay.
In fact, I think it was around when, right?
Maureen's done
Your
with
kids
those, now
were,
I'll just move them
your
over.
kids were
here.
little,
So everyone's arms don't have to grow.
Yep.
but it's wonderful.
I've gone to their shows. I haven't done that.
got my tickets
They're
to
on London.
Cinderella.
Oh, did they go on sale?
Yeah.
And they sell them.
Yeah, I've had to sit really far back.
Oh, yeah, no, get them.
Alright, I think
I don't even know when the play is.
I don't know, I put it
Last
on,
week in March.
I put it on my calendar to buy tickets and then I forgot.
Oh, no, you're not too busy. Okay, so double check.
Yeah, we're going through them all. We checked, those are all,
Yeah, they,
yeah.
those are all.
These, we checked all the other ones, they all have 5 signatures. Yep. And this is one spot.
There's a
in the box. So Bessie just needs those.
Let me see what I have to eat. Are you looking for something, water? What
No, I'm just interested what's in these filing cabinets from how many years ago? Maybe we should clean, I'll just have what Heather and I can keep our files.
Keeping the Mylar.
I think we should have chairs that get brought in.
With our names. We're in a pool. Zoning board. I can't remember. We have a lot of those downstairs. Main Street project.
It's on their agenda already?
Well, I don't know, so we'll find out. They definitely pushed it off.
Yeah, I think we should do it.
Yeah, as soon as, understood.
It's in March, it's, you know,
Give a heads up that I was gonna be rude.
that's the point of the letter, yeah, we got copied. It was a good
Oh.
letter, and it said, we urge you
It
to
said hire
use
an
50, yeah, and use 53. And I think that it's important for them to understand the drawing looks pretty good, and they're just preparing the drawing. There's this whole new level of, like, what are the materials, how are, you know, how are the windows set in or not set in? It's, what they got is basically, it's a first pass, and maybe it's
That's
pretty,
it, yeah.
it needs to be flushed out, and to just approve it, that's when it all becomes all apart, and you just get a cartoon of a decent idea.
Take your marker.
Flip it over smokers.
I can't go. What is it?
go, doesn't matter when it is. Yeah.
I know you are.
Okay,
Go to two and one.
let's get back to the meeting. Our next, let me make sure the microphones are where they need to be. That one's from Nina. Everyone has their own microphone again?
Yeah, I think so.
Amicable conversation with town council on the zoning articles coming up.
After the discussion of what friendly means, I'm a little worried.
Well, that's why I used the word amicable.
Yeah, this should be truly
Well,
fun.
in all my years on the planning board, I've never known us to come to blows.
Well, there have been some verbal blows.
Well, yeah, that doesn't count.
Some bacon.
Okay, so,
As long as they're not physical blows.
well, sometimes words hurt more than fists. So, I guess you have them up. So, I'm gonna just leave this up to Mina. It's your.
Sure. And
Oh, you should introduce yourself.
I
of
will,
course.
certainly.
Sorry.
Mina Macarius, Anderson and Krieger, we're town council to the town. So Brian shared with me the most recent draft that had been circulating, for potential zoning articles that would come up at the spring 2019 town meeting. Art Krieger, my colleague, and I have had a chance to look at this and discuss it. We've also discussed it with, I've discussed it with Brian a little bit, just some high-level thoughts. And I wanted to share what I could tonight, and for your thoughts, some of these are in the realm of wordsmithing and nitpicky edits, but that's part of our job, and some are bigger picture thoughts. And the first thing that just,
Do you have a paper copy of this?
You should have gotten.
We don't have one with the date on it.
It's got some yellow highlighter on it. It wasn't in the packet.
so that would be the
It
one.
doesn't have dates.
I don't have
Brian, we desperately need dates on these things, because I was
Yeah.
shuffling them at home.
Oh, I do.
We don't have the back, no, we don't have what you have up there on.
Yeah, we did.
You don't.
Where is that?
Yeah.
What page does
It's
it
just a
start?
farther page.
Well, the background for
One?
one is at the end.
It should have page number.
So the only difference between this one and the one you have is that, I believe
There's,
we deleted the first article, which was changing the sign bylaw over, or did that not get into the, I mean?
this is
There,
totally
I know we
not.
I know we
That's
have
the
it in
only,
packet.
so that is the only difference, and we haven't even gotten into it yet, but the Article 1, which was to take what was in the general bylaw and move it into the sign bylaw,
Right.
Mina can explain further, but basically highly advised that we should not touch that at the moment, and especially not just a quick changeover one to the other.
Could we invite David to join us, just to hear it without being in the audience?
Sure.
Okay, so why?
Sure, let me explain that. So the instinct to move the sign bylaw to zoning eventually may not be a bad one. It actually there's some reasons why some sign bylaws are standalone general bylaws in town, some are incorporated into zoning. There is no reason they can't stand alone. So there is no case law that says they have to be within zoning. Sometimes it makes it easier.
Interrupt, but you were telling us.
Just
that
curious.
We were told, I thought we needed to move it into the zoning bylaw.
I'm not sure where that came from, and Brian, Art, and I frankly couldn't trace back where that came from. The only thing I could think of is sometimes it makes it possible for the zoning enforcement officer, if it's not already within the general bylaw, to enforce it as yet another zoning issue. So for that purpose, it sometimes can make it administratively easier. You don't have a separate special permit process that you have to build into the sign bylaw. You don't have to worry about a separate variance process. Everything looks just like another zoning process. So some towns, for that reason, keep it that way. So again, the instinct to do that is not on its own a problem. What struck us as a concern about the wholesale move is that sign bylaws and sign provisions in zoning bylaws, whichever one, are coming a lot under intense scrutiny from the courts. A couple of years ago, there was a decision from the Supreme Court of the United States about an Arizona sign bylaw that took the standard that I think was sort of generally understood that you can't regulate, you can't discriminate on the content of the sign, but you could regulate it in some way to really, if you have to read the sign, you're going too far, which shows up in sort of odd places you wouldn't expect. So for instance, telling folks that they have to take down a real estate sign within, you know, the time period after they sell a home, versus a political sign has to be down versus the election. You could accidentally be privileging business speech over political speech, which from the Supreme Court standpoint is a no-no. If you're advertising a church or, you know, a pop-up church, which are becoming increasingly common, versus advertising someone's lawn care business or painting business, you could end up with this discrepancy. And we have had clients who have sort of ended up on the, at least the complaining side of that. Somebody's been complaining about that, and it's caused a change. For that reason, if you're going to move the sign bylaw into zoning, our recommendation was that you would need sort of a wholesale review of it. That's not to say your standards would change significantly, but it's not the kind of thing that I would recommend doing the week or two before a warrant closes, or without input from the board that at least theoretically handles the current bylaw, which is the select board, since it's in the general bylaws. The second big reason, and I think this was flagged as a question in the draft that came to us, is in the old sign bylaw, the standalone one, there's a grandfathering provision, which applied to signs before that bylaw went into place. If you were to put it into zoning, whether or not you had that provision, you would actually grandfather any non-conforming sign today through the zoning grandfathering.
So we
you'd
need to take
actu-
care of the non-conforming signs now, then.
Right, so
Before we-
so if you actually are worrying about that the grandfathering was too broad, which I got the sense from the comment that might be true, moving it into zoning actually creates stronger grandfathering rather than weaker. So there's those kind of unintended consequences that we just thought this is probably not ready for prime time. We'd love to work on this through the summer, maybe bring it to the fall. And I do think you need to have a conversation, or someone needs to have a conversation with the select board and the town manager about it. The other thing I'll say is, to the extent that there have been other wishes and desires of people in the town about the sign bylaw, those you can sort of start thinking and hearing those, because it's not the kind of thing you'd want to open up on a regular basis, because it invites some scrutiny. It's the AG will scrutinize it, courts will, and property owners. So that's a lot to say about something we're not covering, but that's sort of where, that's why we thought.
I can tell you where it came from, because it came from our phase one of the master plan.
Okay.
Okay, so in the consultants, what they say is a review of that document indicated there are some potentially problematic sections with regard to recent U.S. Supreme Court rulings in the Reed versus Town of Gilbert
that's the one, yeah.
decision. So, and
Well, it sounds like we should be reviewing it
Right.
anyway.
yeah, so
Right.
there are issues with it that came through our phase
Whether,
one.
Yeah,
whether
exactly.
So
it
we didn't
gets,
realize,
yeah, so
Yeah.
whether we review it in order to move it into the zoning
Or
bylaws
stay-
or
right.
not, it still needs to be reviewed.
I agree, and let me just say that on at least a quick review, it's not that there's anything that, if there was something flagrant in there that we said, you better remove this now, or, you know, we would have said that. There wasn't anything to that degree. There's just things that,
Nothing to put one's hair on fire.
that's right, nothing put one's hair on fire, but things that if you're going to be touching it, you might as well improve on. So,
so in the current bylaw for town, since we have design review here and we have you here, there are current signs in town that are non-conforming. What is the best action at this point to deal with those before we turn in
Well, if, yeah, you mean,
Violation,
yeah,
yes.
because if they're non-conforming, then they're,
violation of the bylaw?
Violation.
I would have to go back, and I just have to remind myself what the enforcement mechanism is. Like, we can talk offline about specifics of it.
Did
It's-
design review need support in that?
Well,
Or-
we're sort of getting, and that's why I'm here tonight, to see what we're all talking
Oh,
about.
you need a-
This discussion, yeah. Over the last few years, when we give recommendations, it's been to the Board of Selectmen. In fact, they sort of get listened to maybe once in a while by somebody, but really, I don't know that much has happened. Because we're an advisory committee, we're actually involved more with the zoning board now through the other parts of town. So that, and in fact, we are getting back, and we appreciate getting back, written responses to what we send along from the zoning board. So I'm not going to speak for the committee, because I'm just here to hear what you're all talking about, and we'll talk about it tomorrow night.
That's a good
But
point.
there may be some advantages just on a procedural business for us to work through the zoning board.
Yeah, I mean-
To answer your question, Ms. Von Meering, the easier piece of this is that the building commissioner is charged with enforcement, so we'll go through them. I think one of the concerns in the past has been the penalty for failure to comply with the sign bylaw is $10 for each day, which is even lower than the sort of fairly low non-criminal disposition. So you could, again, on another amendment, you could change that into at least 100, 300. It's not much more, but it's a little bit more than $10.
Well, it would be good to have just at least a bite, a little bite, rather than.
Stephanie, now you
Big
said
handy
it's building
cash.
commissioner, it's actually zoning enforcement officer, and we're quite.
In-
we're-
Not for signs.
Not for
in-
signs,
in
it's the
the-
building commissioner.
Licensing,
That's what-
I
administration,
changed,
enforcement?
I changed that, because we were putting it into the zoning, so
Right.
that was the
And
change.
The
He's
original.
saying-
That's what I wanted to look up on, no, it's
Right
okay.
now,
He's
our-
saying whole scratch
Our
to change. so-
recommendations go to the Board of Selectmen, and if the Board of Selectmen wants to pass them on, because we're an advisory committee, then they go to
Building commissioner.
the building commissioner. But, you know, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, and that's fine, we're an advisory committee.
So maybe, is it a discussion we should have with the select board about the signs?
That's what, Mina, is that this is a select board, manager, planning board, design
Yeah.
review extravaganza.
So we can
Yeah.
turn this over to the select board to take care of from here on forward. then.
Right, and I'll anticipate an email saying, can you guys
Well,
do this?
we'll talk about it tomorrow night. If,
Yeah.
we're at the bottom of the chain here, but if we have any ideas, we'll pass them on, I'll pass them
Honestly, we
along.
should be starting spring, fall town meeting articles now.
Yeah.
That's what we've actually determined.
one
is
of
that
the- I
While
mean-
this is going, this is when we should. be
Yeah, I
doing
mean, one of the
spring,
concerns we
fall.
have is to clean up the signs that are currently in violation, but we don't know which ones those are.
That's what we need help from the design review to help
And
us
so
identify.
one thing might be,
In
to-
violation to what, though? They were put up not being approved, or they are grandfathered? Because signs
Not
are
gran-
grandfathered.
You're talking
I'm
about
talking-
non-grandfathered,
I'm
so
talking about,
Oh, you're talking
After
about
the
they
date they
just
were-
show up on
They
a,
just
yeah,
show
okay,
up,
we've,
or they
we have
sh-
a problem with that
Ah.
too.
The illuminated ones that weren't.
so the problem is we don't have a census of signs in town. We don't know which ones are good, which ones are bad. I mean, that's, I guess, the unknown, is people say there are signs which violate the ordinance, but no one says it's this sign that does it.
Yeah, they'd have to say that, and we'd have to find out when it was put in, because there
Right.
are, there are
But-
grandfathered signs.
Right,
So-
understood, but there's just a lot of, people are complaining, but we don't have any
we should.
concrete lists
crowdsource
of signs which,
Pictures of bad signs.
yeah,
and
I
we can
mean,
go
we need to
investigate.
have like a Facebook thing where you can, or send in a picture of a bad
What
sign.
are, you can't,
Right.
what do we act realistically, right? I'm
I
with
don't
David.
think
This
realistically,
doesn't
that's gonna be our committee to go around the town and do it. If you wanna ask the building inspector, if you think there's a sign that's not in.
Not in
co-
compliance.
Not in compliance, it's actually the matter for the building inspector.
Understood.
That's
It's
true.
just that right now, if we are going to change this and maybe bring it into zoning, and we have this concern about even more grandfathering, then we need to make sure that
There's a
everything's
mechanism.
up to code, or we know exactly when it was installed, so that we know which ones are
Who are you
grandfathered and which
expecting
ones.
to do that?
I don't know who,
We need the help of the
I'm
design
merely
review.
pointing out that
Expect
this keeps
that.
going round and round and round. For 2 years, I've heard we've got signs that are no good.
Well, that
and-
may be, but okay, you have to speak for your own committee, but I don't
Well,
think
I'll
that's
talk
right.
about it with our committee. I think what we, as a committee, we've thought, for many years, and now I've been around there too long already.
No,
No, really.
No.
We're an advisory committee, and the worth of our committee, the building inspector should find out what matches the laws. That's fine, and they can do that. We have been more valuable as advisory to a lot of business owners who are not sign makers. And so they use the expertise of our committee, and that's really been that's been the most valuable part of it. We're not trying to be the enforcement agency, that is actually the building inspector, because there is.
I understand that. I'm just,
So
I don't know how to solve this problem.
maybe what we solve this problem is currently, does anyone on the planning board have an issue? If they have an issue, let Brian know. If Brian doesn't hear about a specific sign that's an issue, it's not an issue from our point. If design review has issues with any signs, they let Brian know.
Right.
And
And
from
he
there,
makes a
if no one provides any signs, at this point, it is a muted issue, and it's off of the planning board's agenda at this point.
Well, and if
And
it goes to
with-
you, it just goes straight to the building
Yeah,
inspector.
Yeah.
bring it right to the.
It's just the building
And it'll
inspector.
be part of, if we go forward and bring this into zoning, it'll be trying to deal with that prior to this going
Yeah,
into zoning.
no, I think
I
that's
guess
fair.
So-
if that is the one thing you could do is at the meeting with your colleagues tomorrow night, just ask if people could, maybe even their chair would be a point person or the secretary, clerk, whatever, if somebody could be a point person and just ask for people in the next couple weeks to, or maybe through the summer, really, it would be fine.
It's through the
but
summer.
just-
It should be ongoing.
As you're driving around or walking around or jogging around, biking around, just start sending in, compiling a
If you
list.
see, if you see
And-
something
So it's not
that's.
going to be
that's
Yeah,
of
Yeah,
It's
interest,
a
take
nice
take
idea,
time
it's a
of it.
nice idea, but people on our committee don't know when these signs all went in.
Oh,
And I
that
think
I-
our
no,
biggest
that-
problem
That's
is
understood.
signs that are
That's
going in that we don't
There's,
get to see.
We can
That's
find, we
understood.
can find out if it's
Yeah, just
relatively
give,
recent.
just identify signs that are.
So I just want to mention out to people in TV land, there are a lot more of you than there are us here. So if you see a sign in town that you think is inappropriate, please email Brian Kelly.
All right, okay, so
I can
moving
really
on from the
get these
signs,
when-
thank
So I
you.
think we've,
By the way,
You're done-
just
you're
for
done with me.
everybody's information, the warrant closes for Fall Town meeting on Friday, September 20th.
okay. So that's our deadline, Friday, September 20th. Get your sign complaints in by then.
And so, going forward with this, we're gonna do our joint meeting with the select board and bring signs into the agenda, just so they can then work, and we can turn it over to them
Yeah.
to deal with.
Okay,
I think that-
so,
And clean up the
Yeah.
the
Right, for
bylaws
those
to be
other
more
reasons, right,
accurate.
right.
and I'm going to
But
put
I
that as
definitely want
a,
to make sure design review is kept involved through the whole process, because they're the ones who really.
Right.
Deal with that, right.
custodians are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
David, yeah.
All right,
Becky.
all right, so with that one,
Okay, so that's been pulled.
pulled. Let me make one other general comment before we get into the other articles. The form of them will change, just the form that has been on the warrant the last couple of years just looks different. So I think what you had here is drafted as a motion. Realistically, Winchester is one of those towns that puts the full zoning bylaw text in its warrant, which means that the motion doesn't need to repeat it. It just needs a
right.
move.
By reference.
Yeah, by reference. So it'll look different, if you see a draft from us, it'll look different in the organization. All right, so going through, I'm sticking with the old numbers just for clarity. So Article 2 is still the deletion of 7-3-15-2-3, CBD Review Subcommittee. We had very little to add in here. Just a couple of sort of clarifying clauses, so I'm not even sure it's worth going through those now. We can get those, Brian, I think you've seen the comments. It's to add, for instance, if no report is received by the SPGA from the Winchester Historical Commission and Design Review Committee, in that 3, 4, 5, fifth line there. And then again at the very end. So that kind of clarification, unless you want me to, I don't plan to go through this.
Yeah, I've,
Wordsmithing.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then non-substantive, just a referral
But you are
back.
gonna do it with Brian, is what
It's
you're
already
saying?
done.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, it's up there?
It's up here.
Oh, it's up there,
Oh, I'm
but it's
sorry.
not in my packet. Okay,
Correct, because at the
Okay.
time of the packet, the meeting hadn't happened yet.
okay.
Got it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood.
So I think, Brian, I'm not sure if it captured my comment in this one, to be honest. This version doesn't capture those, but, because I think I sent you these on, after the 28th.
Right, this is actually from the first that I think it does, but
Well,
All right,
either way, that.
We'll
yeah,
take care of it, but yeah, I'm not sure it does in that version on the screen, but
Okay.
actually, I don't
All right.
think it does, but,
Okay, well,
Okay.
please make sure that you are satisfied.
okay. And then you'll all have another chance, from what I understand, to go through this again, right? It's
We're going to have a public hearing, I believe,
So-
and that's it.
On the 19th.
on the 19th. So, and you'll have, and so I don't think there'll be any further comments from us unless
Yeah,
something
but
happens.
why don't we try to get the cleaned up document for us next week?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
In fact, let me see if I brought a few extra copies, so at a minimum, you know what, I should have enough here. No, if you want, you can look on my red lines, and that way you can see what we've done separately. Oh, sorry. All right. Article 3, the change in the definition of floor area, we had nothing at all, actually, to change. We were satisfied with that change. From what I understand, this to sort of came up at last town meeting, and I remember the discussion, and
I have an extra.
I think this made sense to us.
Do you need one?
So
Where are we?
I wasn't at the last meeting, I just had a quick question for Ms. Gears real quick.
Mhm.
So the garages that are underground, like are underneath in the basement level, those are now included or not included?
Basement's never included. Is that?
Under house garages
Yeah,
were excluded previously.
correct. If it's in the basement, regardless of its use, if it's below grade, it's not counted.
Okay, so do we have the definition of basements anywhere?
Yes.
There is a definition of basement, and it's more than 50% is below grade.
And anything in that basement
Doesn't-
counts?
It
Including-
doesn't, no, doesn't count,
Count, yes, I was flipping it.
sorry.
So anything that falls inside that basement does not count?
Correct, and I think that's what the board, I think after lengthy conversation, that was the, yes.
And
that was-
that's
was the
correct
determination.
interpretation, right? So,
Well, it's a choice of how you're counting floor area, but I think this was intended to be consistent with the building code, right? No,
Mhm.
so.
okay. So I just want to make sure so that stays consistent. That's the same,
Yeah,
garages,
yeah,
garages
no,
fall under.
We
that are
well, I
in
wouldn't say
basements.
garages, I would say, because it's not garages, it's things below grade, meaning that if the garage is above grade, you can't, we're not talking about excluding garages.
Right.
We're just
It's just a-
including anything that has 7 feet or over that's above grade. So whether it's used as a garage or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Could be something else. It could be an expanded home office, who knows?
Okay, all set?
So then anything underground, you could build a house underground and it would not count towards your
Fallout
floor area.
shelter, some of us remember those.
You cannot, livable space requires, you cannot put livable space in a cellar. And a cellar is completely underground.
Yes, you can put it in a cellar. You have to have an egress window.
Either way, if there's no massing to it, there's not counted in floor area in terms of
Cellars,
the.
cellars can't have living space.
Basements can.
Basements can, but cellars can't.
Basements are excluded, so.
I'm sorry. If you wanted to put a house,
Right, I think you're right. I
What's the
think
difference between a
but you
basement
can't
and
put a house
cellar?
completely underground, because then that would count as a cellar, not as a basement. And so you can't put living space in a cellar. In order to have living space, you have to be in a basement, which has you have to have at least a basement where you have to have a minimum amount of area above ground.
Okay,
Partly underground, but having more than 1/2 of its entire wall area above the level of the adjoining ground. It shall be counted as a floor or story if used for business or dwelling purposes.
okay.
But you can't use a cellar, which is, if it's deeper than that.
And then a cellar
It's sort of the inverse definition.
is the part of a building having less than 1/2 of its entire wall area above the level of the ground, so.
It says, no cellar or portion thereof shall be used as a dwelling unit.
Okay.
So,
But basements are excluded.
but basements are different from cellars.
What's the point?
Basements, more than half of it is above ground, cellars, more than half of it's below ground. That's the difference
At least
So
in
it's-
this town.
in this, in this,
And these two
Yeah, which
is
definitions.
zoning
Where
bylaw.
Heather's going is because we exclude basements, you're gonna see a lot of basements.
okay, great. What's the difference?
They're still above ground,
Portions of them,
are still above ground. So you have half of that basement is above ground, it's one structure.
so you're saying if you
And then taking
have,
up the floor area of the lot, but it does not count.
so you're talking about someone who has 2 feet below grade and 10-foot ceiling. So it's 2 feet below grade and then it's 8 feet above grade for a total of 10 feet. And you're saying that entire floor wouldn't count? That would be counted, that would be the first floor though. That wouldn't be really.
Basements are half. Based on the, so the whole reason I asked this is
Yeah,
because what
no,
happened
you're
at
right,
Fells,
You're right. I
proposal.
think you're right.
where they
I agree.
took up land for parking, it was above grade and it did not count towards the floor
But
area.
in the definition of basement, you also have another clause, a basement shall be counted as a floor or story if used for business or dwelling
And you
purposes.
do have to count all stories.
Right.
So-
Yeah,
But it doesn't
that's
count
not
towards
the
the floor.
problem.
Floor
The
area, you're
problem
counting, right, I understand
floor
that,
area.
yeah.
Well, the question is, on the Fells site, would that have counted as a basement?
No, it's the first floor. There was a basement.
the parking garage.
It
Was
the-
not a
it-
basement.
It was not the basement, it was the first floor. It was on grade.
They had a portion that was below grade, which was used for storage
And
and
they built the
mechanicals.
land up to it.
Yeah, why do we want to exclude basements? We exclude cellars. I think that's where, Heather, is that where you're going?
No, I just want to examine exactly what we're talking about,
Oh,
because
yeah.
people are, okay,
No,
I've
but
reached
it's-
floors, so
Now that
now.
you've helped us understand where we are, do we want to exclude cellars? It's not basements, but maybe basements should be counting.
Well, so we're trying to get the massing and then
Yeah.
the
No, yeah.
overall taking up of the lot, right?
Well, let me just throw this out. Maybe I'll start with Mina, just as a matter of logic. Could, let's see, where we go. Current definition proposal, right. Basements, what if it said cellars are excluded?
Yeah, more than half of it's below, so then,
If what you're worried about is somebody putting their entire floor area and sort of, as, use the example Brian mentioned, that somebody is going to
say it's their basement.
say it's their basement because it's
Oh,
3
yeah.
feet underground and 10 feet above ground.
I have no question they will do that.
Then, and it's counted towards floor area, it'd be, I'm not saying these don't exist, it'd be an odd-shaped house, because then they'd, all their other floor area, they'd probably
Yeah,
have
would
to,
all be-
kind of a pyramid shape.
corresponding with-
Right,
No, I'm
right.
not asking for an aesthetic.
No, I know, right, right, I'm thinking through it. Then if you, yes, then I think if you have that concern, changing basement to cellar would change that problem, would make a little bit of sense, because now a cellar, if a cellar is excluded, it.
It's just going out of your way to say a cellar is excluded because it's obvious.
Yeah, right. Right.
Believe me, with this.
But not, but rather than say basements are excluded, that's a
However-
policy choice.
However,
No, I understand. I just want to know.
a,
if that
a,
would be okay.
a standard residential house that has a basement, that, a normal house, the one you see
That's why I don't-
thousands and thousands and thousands of, that have maybe 5 to 6 feet below grade and maybe 6 feet above grade, that's totally a basement, everyone would recognize as a basement, that wouldn't be counted, obviously. And you wouldn't want to count that as floor area, because then you're gonna have even a lot more triggers from site plan review and others
Yeah,
that
we-
shouldn't be warranted.
Right.
So-
Which is why, just to add to that, Brian, that is why I was getting into the aesthetics, not because I personally have any view on it, but because if you, that instrument may be too blunt, because if you are worried about the sort of person abusing that rule, you're also going to sweep in, and again, we've seen this happen, you're going to create a lot of non-conforming structures almost immediately if most basements are sort of, no one thinks of them as part of the massing,
Yeah.
and you're doing
Why
it that
wouldn't
way.
you say
Right,
basements
because they're not really visible.
with an average of a certain number of feet above grade?
Mhm.
Because if we're trying to avoid a full floor,
Right.
then, what you're talking about is, 5, 6 feet. I mean, that's really specific, that's a very specific definition for floor area.
It's almost basements that would meet the headroom on their own above grade is essentially
Yeah.
what I think you're getting at. The headroom of 7 feet is what you're concerned about, yeah.
Without a doubt, the
I mean,
headroom
basically,
of
we
7
already
feet
have
above
these
grade.
Above
three-story
grade, yeah.
houses, and then with this,
I
you
don't
have
know
to-
how you would do that. How will you define above grade? Because this is,
It's the average mean grade.
it's the average mean grade. How much of the basement has to be above average mean grade at 7 feet? Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
no, that is what it.
that's really
what
what you need to answer.
Can I ask just another question again? You know the building stock in town far better than I would. Is it possible to exceed your floor area ratios as a practical matter without adding enough height to then create another story? Because that is, the other thing is if you have the definition of a basement,
It's counted as a
As a
story,
count as
you
a
can only do
story.
2.5 stories.
right, I mean, I'm saying if it's, right, you'd have to have a really broad, flat building essentially.
Well,
That's what- and that's,
What I'm talking about is someone has a house,
yeah.
and then they build a second addition to it that's below
Below grade.
grade, and you have maybe a couple feet above.
But that is,
And you're taking up the floor area, and it's puncturing
It's a
the
lot,
surface
okay.
but it's still under grade. Like, let's
So-
say they put a patio or something on top of that section, but you are breaking that.
but
Have you
that
seen
would be
any
a.
like that?
I mean, so the footprint would be counted, the footprint would be counted as part of the building coverage. It wouldn't be counted towards site plan review for a floor area trigger. It also, I mean,
Because if it's just a couple feet above ground, above grade, then it's a cellar.
it's a cellar.
No, if it's habitable, it turns it to a basement.
You can't, no, a basement has to have more than one
More than
half of
half
its
of it
entire
above
wall
grade.
area above ground, above grade.
So if it's only, yeah, so if it's only 2 or 3 above, then you would only have to have 1 or 2 feet below, like, more than half of it has to be above grade for it to be a basement.
Right, and
That's in our zoning bylaws.
That's the difference between a basement and a cellar.
But in the building code itself, not the zoning, in the building, you can have habitable space that falls under the definition of how much is under a cellar, and it's still habitable. So what defines that in our,
Our,
you can't have habitable space?
you cannot have, the
doesn't
cellar
count as a
is
story,
that part of a building having less than one half its entire wall area above the level. No cellar or portion thereof shall be used as a dwelling unit.
Yeah, so that's prohibiting what you're talking about.
But what we have is, we have basements with habitable space with egress in it to meet the building code,
That's a basement, not a cellar.
but they are not half above.
Then they're
No.
grandfathered in or they're in violation.
Yeah, I agree.
at least under this definitional language, they're either, I guess they're one of three things. They're,
Yeah, so there was another problem we didn't
Yeah.
catch.
Whoa.
I mean, if it exists and they
This
have,
thing exists, it's existed in everything that's being built right now. You have basements that are finished, that are habitable space, that have, the majority have, they come up maybe 3 feet
Yeah, they're all
above,
on
Which
the
is-
they're all
Right.
raised now, yeah.
well,
She's right.
and they're
then,
habitable, they meet the code, the building code, maybe not the zoning, but they meet the
I
building
can
code,
think
because
of
they have
one on
egress
my
windows
main
with window
addresses.
wells.
right, but
that's different than a dwelling unit too. I mean, that's whether they're habitable under the building code. You have a definition of dwelling unit,
Right.
and the dwelling unit definition tracks a basement one. It has to be more than halfway above the ground.
oh, so a dwelling unit is a
more
separate, independent housekeeping establishment.
Oh, Heather Von Mering, would you?
But it
say-
says a dwelling unit shall have more than one half its floor to ceiling above the level. Okay, so what we're missing is wording in the definition of cellar which prevents it from being used as a habitable area.
It can't be counted as a story or a floor, so I can't, how could it be habitable area?
Maybe a basement can't be counted.
No, a cellar shall
Cellar.
not be counted as a floor or story.
And basements are counted.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Basements are counted, so if it
But
can't
can you
be,
build a basement with nothing above it?
That's like a whole existential question that I'm not ready to.
But that's where you're asking,
where I'm going.
yeah.
That's where I'm really going.
It's a
Can you build-
basement, but it's actually above ground. You can,
Yeah.
it's not an entire bunker underground.
If
Sure.
more
In case
than,
you're
yeah,
not
I mean,
concerned.
if more than half of it is above ground, and there's nothing above it,
then it's a basement.
it's a basement, even though you really would consider it a small one-story building.
And I guess my question was if, how difficult it would be for that building to exceed the floor area ratio. I just realistically, I can't imagine that without building on top of that and needing the stories. Now, but I am not a planner, I am not an architect.
No, I mean, you would
guys-
need a ridiculously large lot to just be able to have an expansive, essential bunker.
But in our, we're talking about residential, but I'm worried about the commercial, where we have lots of coverage available on those lots.
Right, so I'm trying to understand.
As of now, it's actually more the commercial that I'm worried about than the residential, because
We're
you know
worried
they're gonna
about
put
the co-
patios on it, and they're gonna do hardscape, and we have hardscape stuff going on in our,
I'm not so worried, I mean, I think that's a good, that's an amenity, meaning I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that someone getting cute trying to say that it's a basement even though it's a first floor, which has nothing to do with what goes on top of a basement. It has to do with a building that essentially has first floor parking that they're calling a basement. So we want to, that is the main concern, Mina, with this, is that there's a situation where it didn't count, this garage didn't count because
It wasn't a dwelling.
but it really was on the first floor, and we want to count all of that.
Right.
And it's, again, more commercial, mixed-use, larger, multi-scale buildings, not single and duplexes.
So can we get back to the solution we were starting to talk about, and maybe just, I'm not sure if it's possible to do on the fly.
Sure.
but the aggregate horizontal area in square feet, and this is of new floor area, floors with a headroom of 7 feet or higher of a building or several buildings on the same lot. I mean, I don't know if it's as simple as this, I'd want to read it in context, but isn't what you really want all portions of floors with a headroom of 7 feet or higher
Above grade.
above grade?
Yes.
So that
That's
essentially,
what I want. I don't know about all the rest of the 5, but
but that's one solution, I shouldn't
yes,
say
I
that.
think that is,
Because
Somebody
otherwise
read
this is
that
starting to be
slower.
kind of.
Well, I'm not sure if it's quite this, but let me describe what I'm trying to get at, and then we can talk about the language. It's, imagine if you have that basement, just, yeah, the basement, you would take away the exclusion for it.
what they would do is they would
Well,
go
you would-
1 foot under.
So let's say they go 1 foot
6
under
foot
and they
and
have.
6 foot
or-
over.
Or let's actually say, just to make, 8 feet over,
Uh-huh.
first. You essentially would be measuring from an imaginary floor
Mhm.
that's not actually in there, that's at grade
Mhm.
Mhm.
and above it. And if it's 7 or 8 feet above, you count all that space, but you don't count the 1 foot and below. You should sort of just, they don't,
It doesn't matter really, because I mean,
'Cause
it's
then it would all
it's a
count.
floor, it's a floor area,
Would-
but the idea is that you only count the floor area where it's 7 feet above grade.
exactly.
So that is what came out of
That's the problem.
a year and a half ago from this board.
Yeah.
I'll speak for you again. That is the issue.
You're
Yeah.
correct.
We can finalize that.
We can say, I
we
mean, that's the
we
issue,
can
that's,
finalize
I
that.
may have not quite understood it that way. If you're trying to exclude basements because too many of them look this way and you don't want to over-regulate, the basements, then this language works. If what you're trying to do is account for that issue as well, then I think you need to mention grade in the, in where you're measuring.
I think that works. Can we move forward with
Yes.
that one?
I'm not sure it works because we're talking about floors. And I mean, if we're gonna, we have, things can be a floor or not a floor depending upon use. So for instance, a basement is a floor if it's used for business or dwelling purposes, but it's not a floor if it's not. So when you talk about floors, the definition of a floor comes in.
Well, and then you've solved it a different way. I mean, this is where I keep coming back to. So if it is a floor, then it's not a basement, it's not excluded. Right? Because if a basement,
Well, a basement can be a floor. See, a basement can be both a floor and not a floor.
counted as a floor, right?
It's like the cat, Heisenberg's
There's just a
cat.
little, just a
So-
sheet that's in there.
So do you want to say, do you want to track your definition? I'm sorry, again, doing this on the fly is a little bit
It's
different.
fine.
Basements are excluded, your current exclusion, current proposed exclusion is basements are excluded from this calculation for all building uses. If you in the definition of basement, a basement shall be counted as a floor or story if used for business or dwelling purposes. If you said basements, comma, other than a basement used for business or dwelling purposes are excluded from this calculation, would that do it or wouldn't do it?
No, that would allow parking,
Yeah,
that would
parking,
allow
yeah.
parking.
So then you'd have that problem, right,
Right.
right.
Essentially.
Because you're
I don't- I
actually
don't think we wanna
It's
go there.
actually the bigger problem.
Right, and so you're not truly worried about whether or not these two definitions, I guess, don't connect in that way.
Well, we
The
certainly,
uses certainly don't
Oh,
matter,
yeah.
really, if it's
Okay.
7 feet or more above
That's what I
grade, we
thought,
shouldn't
right.
be counting it. Or, sorry, we should be counting
be
it, sorry.
Yes.
if it's, well, 7 feet or more above grade, but we still don't know what percentage of that thing is
No,
7%.
Whatever this footprint is, whatever height whatever is 7 feet or more, just like how we're counting the
Above
attic.
mean grade.
Yeah, whatever portion of of this floor is above, it has a headroom of 7 feet or more, that's what you count. So regardless if it's used for parking or used for anything, it's whatever, yeah.
Yep.
so-
So we would be including tall basements.
Yes.
But we don't see those.
No, I'm just,
We're seeing those in the
I just
general
want to
business.
see technically what it is that we are including. So we are
We
going
do
to be,
have some of those in the general business district.
Right, so we'll have more, in the more dense, town center and GBD 2 and 3, yes. But you're not gonna see someone with 6 feet of, a
Yeah,
concrete
yeah.
of like 6
Yeah,
feet
no.
above grade and then their house, like
I was
whatever.
merely trying to visualize. I wasn't,
right.
judging on it. So,
We will,
That works.
Wordsmith that.
So if we,
That
if we,
helps.
That's the concept, right?
Yep.
so we simply exclude the last part of that paragraph,
Yeah, so you take out basements are excluded.
Right.
and then we're
And then
left.
Wordsmith the rest to just include the amount of area that has a headroom of 7 feet or higher, just like we did for the attic.
Above.
Above,
mean grade.
above mean grade.
Yep.
I think we can just say grade. Is grade by definition mean grade?
I think it's in the code, in the bylaw. so.
Okay.
Beth,
Okay.
did that make sense to you, Beth? You follow.
That's like, whatever gets me out of here on time.
Most complicated, non-engineering conversation I've ever heard.
You haven't lived till you
Nah,
come to the
it's-
planning board meeting.
Hey, wait, we can find some more wormholes to go through.
Okay,
All right.
so, thank you.
Appreciate the patience with that. All right, good news. Article 4, other than the sort of formatting thing we talked about before, although I said that about Article 3, didn't I? I think, is the intent here simply to just expand the reach of
Yeah,
site plan
it's
review?
not, we're not getting site plan review in the GBD 2 and 3,
Okay.
and there have been several examples over the past dozen years where we should probably,
Yes.
You should have it.
probably
yeah.
review those.
We believe we should.
This is not going to capture all of them, either all the ones we quote missed. This is a small measure,
Okay,
you know.
okay. Article 5, or what was Article 5,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
Article
yeah.
4. We are, I have to say, we were a little bit baffled by, or not baffled by, we're not sure you want to take out that use of that term, max building height. I explained this in part to Brian. You have in here, I think the concern was if you start calling it max building height, it suggests that it's the by right height. I think you're covered because you have the language with special permit. You use max building height throughout the whole table, and I think one or two other places in the bylaw itself, or at least are being amended. It's concerning to me to start mixing in by right height when what you
Right.
mean is max. So I'm not sure you need this article at all, because I think that's all you're doing in it, right? You're not changing the numbers.
No, the numbers are changing.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a change right there that I didn't see, okay.
the height
So 3,
itself.
it is, okay. So the height changes are fine, but losing the term.
Okay,
sorry,
so
that's right.
now I'm a little confused,
Yes.
because was this the one that you marked up?
That is the one that I marked up.
So,
In red.
but,
Yeah.
So there was
Okay.
no changes to it, but we had a comment on the side.
right, so are you saying we should not use the term by right height?
I would revert to the struck-through max building height.
Okay, that was what confused me.
Yeah,
'cause
I
thought-
didn't make the change on this one, just because
You didn't make
we
the
want to talk about why you're doing it.
Okay,
but-
so we are
more
going
conceptual.
to reverse the strike-through.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it still gets us the same place we want
Just
to
the
be.
terms, yeah.
Just the terms, but you're right, I'm sorry, I'd forgotten that you'd done that. It's the 2.5 up to 3, 40 up to 45, that should
Right.
stay.
Yep.
That's the
Okay.
important part.
Okay,
Article 6 looks identical to another inclusionary housing.
Yep, that was the point was to bring the good work over from the center business district that was
To-
already approved by Housing Partnership
Right.
Board. The only, Housing Partnership Board, they might, since it's been a few years since we did it, they might suggest some edits, but I don't know.
Well, so then that was one of the thoughts, is we had little potential edits for clarity, but none of them are worth making in one bylaw but not the other, because
Right,
then you
they're
sort of have
mirrored.
discrepancies.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's.
So you may want to have that conversation and see if they are
Oh, you
planning.
mean
Well-
the edits you made here?
Yeah, the edits we made here are not substantive, they're,
Oh, we could add it.
Should, could we edit the other one to match it,
Yeah, sure.
is what he's saying?
Oh.
Add another, or an identical article to just clean
So
it up?
that actually could be an issue, because since
because your
our,
notice.
yeah, our
Yeah.
note, so our legal notice has already had to have gone out because our
Oh.
meeting is on the 19th.
I know
Right.
that.
So we have all the list, it's always easy to take off, you don't have to, but you can't,
Right,
we
but
can't.
you can't
add
put it
it.
on.
Well, I don't think anything we did here
But
is.
nothing
is
you
worth-
said, yeah, nothing
is
was
worth
doing so.
substantial.
All right.
Um,
we
for that
can do
reason.
this in the fall.
Yeah, and if you're gonna do it in the fall, there may be other things.
I would, yeah, I mean,
So it's okay if they don't match right now, you're saying to the fall?
It's either okay that they don't match, or they might as well match. I guess, let me rephrase it. They might as well match,
Yeah,
and then you can make these sort of grammatical.
they're grammatical.
so then
A
maybe, so the
project
idea was
that
maybe
has-
we pull it, maybe
yeah,
we
yeah.
pull this one and fix them both Is that
No.
what you're saying?
No.
No.
You want it to happen, you want it to happen now, so.
No, we would love for it to happen.
So I
These,
think go
these don't
forward.
change the meaning of anything.
Right, exactly.
So we can just say,
Nor my comments.
we'll fix them later.
Hang on.
No, it's a good thing, though. That's
Yeah, I
something
mean,
for us to think of, okay.
Yeah, so we can, I would
So
suggest,
for-
we take Mina's comments as they are now, we'll end up with two sections that are slightly different. I don't think anyone,
That's
So
up to
for
you.
fall of 2019, add to our list that we will then update the minor
Update
edits.
seven
Well, let's just
three.
edit, yeah.
It's just the
Present
minor
the
edits.
edits on the inclusionary and what hopefully will be 2 areas of the zone.
Right, right.
Okay, thank you.
So that's, either way, I don't think that's too much work. Article 7, is that, or
Yeah.
what used to be Article 7, is that still there, Brent? Or now Article 6? Can we, let's revisit this one. I was not sure what is left in this one if you do everything else you're going to do. So this is that highlighted,
Yeah, this was the one that was in flux that we said this is not ready for prime time.
this rooftop elevator equipment.
We were in the middle of
Because
it.
Article 8 takes care of it.
It might, I don't know. That's why I want to understand is 8, 9, 10. Everything else seems to be addressing similar issues, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay,
Trying to
we'll just
figure-
keep moving then.
So, on the next one,
We're on
we,
8.
yes, we're on, 8 on
Yep.
sheet I had. My question was just, if you look at Article 9, actually, and this is, I did this going backwards a little bit. You have language regarding screening. And the screening, as I read Article 9, can go above the equipment itself, which makes sense. You
Yeah.
want to protect it from it. Here, you have heating, ventilation, air conditioning vents may exceed the maximum height with non-residential districts by the minimum height required, but you don't have the allowance for screening like you do on the next one.
Okay.
So I think you might want to add,
Add that.
And the screening of those.
yeah, so you want to add that same clause between vents and may in the
So heating, ventilation, and air conditioning,
vents,
vents,
to-
along with the
comma, together
screening
with the screening to make the.
of
the
those
mechan-
items.
Yeah, basically same
Okay.
language as, with screening to make the mechanical equipment not visible from any public way, comma, may exceed.
Sounds good.
I just noticed, do we? Why are we, okay, so the vents may exceed the maximum height by whatever the state building code does, but the equipment itself, together with screening, can only go up 4 feet.
Well, that was,
Right, I just realized that I
Yeah.
was, so do we need to do something?
well, that was my next question on 9, is you say may exceed the height requirement by 4 feet. Is that your bylaws height requirement or the minimum height required by?
The 4
State.
feet is actually the zoning law currently as it sits for the center business district. But the vents and chimneys are set by the Massachusetts State Building Code.
Right.
So the 4 feet is
It's
currently
zoning, brother.
it's zoning.
So that's what I thought, but I think, and Deb, you may be on the same point that I am in 9. So you say heating, ventilation, the new language, vents may exceed the maximum height by the minimum height required, excuse me,
As Mass State
by the
Building Code.
MA State Building Code. So you have that language, and then you have the domes and towers, then you have additionally mechanical equipment such as heating, venting, and air conditioning units together with screening may exceed the height requirement by up to 4 feet. And so my question is, and I think,
Should be
maybe,
heating and air conditioning
Yeah,
units.
I'm
The
wondering
venting
wh-
doesn't need to be in
Why
there.
don't we have the exact same language for both of these then?
One is the actual heating and air conditioning condensers and
no,
stuff. The
Okay,
other
so-
one is actually the vents.
Right, but I'm looking at, if we look at Article 8, the language is almost identical to what's in Article 9.
Because one's in the center business district and
Right.
one is
But it's not exactly identical, because it leaves out the mechanical equipment.
on houses.
Okay, so the key was we don't want mechanical equipment going up above So we did it on purpose.
Mhm.
We did
Aha,
that part
We did it
on
on
You don't want
purpose.
mechanical
But,
houses.
but I think the second point, I just want to make sure that this was also intentional, is that the vents can go, let's say Mass Building Code changes it to 30 feet. They can go 30 feet.
It's a minimum, though.
Well, they may exceed the maximum height by the minimum height required, so. if
Yeah,
it's
so
a
that's a
height-
clearance, the
Yeah, it's a
minimum
clear-
allowed clearance, right?
Right,
it's
so
set
let's
by-
say that's way higher than 4 feet, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Right.
You'll allow that because you're not trying to get in the way of the building code.
Yeah,
But if it's the units themselves, they can only be 4
mhm,
feet above.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think,
That's-
Nina, your point that what is the 4 feet we're talking about, so we should add in language, this would be
Make sure that's clear.
exceed the zoning.
Well, I think you might use, this is where that definition matters, you may use max building,
Right.
whatever we're talking
May
about. before
exceed the mass
height.
building, yeah. So we should add in that language.
It's actually not the max building height may exceed the maximum building height, it may exceed the height of the building by 4 feet. So they can't, if you say maximum building height, right, so let's say the building.
of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, so just
Well,
introduce.
so much, because here it says may exceed the height requirement,
Mm.
which makes it sound like if you have these kind of units, I thought that's what you were getting at, because it's a little different than saying, if someone decides to build the bunker,
Mhm.
and they keep everything at a 15-foot building, and it's below, let's say, in an area where you can go up to 30 feet, their units, you're saying, can only go up to 19 feet?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what this says.
That's what I'm saying, that's why it needs to be changed.
Yeah, this says they can go up to 34.
Yeah, so that
Right.
could have a huge ginormous mechanical.
Oh, that would be, yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's, if we could change that.
So how do we write that so
It's
that
all relative.
it may exceed the building height by 4 feet? By
You would have to say the building's height. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking
The
about,
building's height,
Right.
you're
yes,
talking about,
a particular building.
Of a
Each
particular,
building can only
right.
have the mechanical equipment go 4 feet above it.
4 feet above it.
Right.
Okay.
That's legal, I'm assuming, because that's.
Building,
just thinking
building
it-
G apostrophe S.
I'm just thinking it through. I mean, if you're,
It's curly there. And that's really the intention of the mechanicals on everything in Boston and everything, and just,
yeah, of course. It's basically the roof line, yeah,
Yeah.
they're worried about. I'm just thinking it through because if you're a building that for whatever reason you want to have a giant air conditioner, do you have any right to do that just because you're under building height? And I guess probably not. I mean, you're not exceeding the overall height if it's properly screened.
Right.
And I guess the question is now we're getting into what is a roof or not, because if you are not creating a story above the roof, and it's perfectly screened, and you happen to have 10-foot tall utilities there, or, you decided you're near flooding, so you're gonna put every single utility up there, which is why some of the businesses do it,
Mhm.
in downtown. Should you be able to exceed, that 4 feet? Yes, I'm just not sure where,
the fear is, or what?
sorry,
You're
well, I
not
understand
sure-
what the fear is, I think, it's sort of I can see how a building would look sort of imbalanced if it's
Oh.
more utility.
Exactly,
It was-
if it's too much. yeah.
How we had it is additional screening and may exceed the height requirement by up to
Right.
4.
So that's why I'm saying that, to me, would read the height, I'm not sure what that means, if it means I read that as
It's
a
the height
height,
requirement in that zone.
In that
or
zone.
In that district.
So either they
Yes.
have to pull it down,
But if they were to build a 1-story building, then
that's
they
my
could
point.
put
They can put a
Two
2
two
stories
That's right.
of mechanical.
Right, and that's,
Which,
if that's,
why would that ever happen?
why would that happen, I'm not sure, I agree that it probably wouldn't.
Seems a little.
But you're also saying that you can't put a 5-foot tall, I mean, just to use a less extreme,
Yeah,
a
right.
5-foot tall air conditioning unit on a 20-foot building that could go up to 30 feet. And if that's a different issue than saying, if you're already up to 30 and the max height is 30, you can only go up to 34.
Yeah, because if they,
Which is how
I think-
this reads
I mean,
now.
realistically, I think it makes sense that it shouldn't be able to exceed the height requirement in the district.
Right,
I understand the concern, I don't know.
keep your mechanicals in the height of the building.
right, and that's,
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
right, and we'll give you a couple more feet.
If you
for-
screen
If
it.
necessary.
It's really for the screening.
Exactly.
So if you're gonna put mechanicals there, we'll give you 4 additional feet to screen it, so it's an incentive
Right.
to screen that mechanical equipment.
Oh, we're mandating, aren't
Yeah.
we? We're not incentivizing anything. We
Well,
just
how
want
it's
it
written is
Well-
incentivized.
It's in, I, actually, then I can see a creative argument around that, that says together with the screening, meaning if I have screening, I can only use up to 4 feet for that too. If I don't screen at all, I can still use the 4 feet. It's to,
Screening is supposed to be part of it.
We want screening.
okay, but that's different than requiring it. Here. So,
Right.
How it's written.
Yeah,
Well, it's just saying what the
it's saying how you're
height
gonna,
requirement is, like, yeah.
yeah, you're saying how you're gonna measure it, but if I decide to use my 4 feet and not screen, this seems to allow that.
So the 4 feet, how it's currently written in the zoning, is that the 4 feet of the screening of those items
Can exceed
can exceed the 4 feet, not the actual
equipment.
equipment.
Right.
But if the equipment can't, why would you have the screening?
Right, so I guess
all
that's why I
over?
was wondering why the change then, because if you have additionally screening of necessary mechanical equipment, just heating and which may exceed the height requirement, then you're saying this, that's what you're saying, screening can go for 4 feet more. This change makes it say mechanical equipment with or without screening can exceed 4.
Well, in terms of screening, this is simply a section on height exceedance. Do we have screening elsewhere in the
That's the other
zoning?
question, yeah.
Yeah.
Which says you can only put things on there if it's screened.
Can you type a screen
Yeah.
into your
I'm
search
looking,
function?
a lot of it's in the lighting, height exceedance, that's this one. General standards, in site plan review. Wireless communications.
So I hate to drag us back to Article 8, but Article 8 would apply to the GBDs, and we don't say anything in Article 8 about mechanical structures. I mean, sorry, not mechanical structures, the mechanical equipment.
Yeah, we weren't giving them any lenience. They had to get the mechanical equipment under the roof line.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
In the
I-
GBDs, okay.
Because they're
Okay.
smack dab in
I
residential.
will one day remember that, so.
Well, when do you remember that? What do you mean?
And hopefully that day will be town meeting, Diab, so.
And then I'll forget
Yeah,
right
slightly-
after
slightly
that,
before,
which is all that
right, yeah.
matters, right? So,
Um,
once it's in the text, it's fine. yeah.
I mean, we have huge heights in the center business district. Do we feel that we need to support mechanicals, giving the extra feet for
No,
mechanicals
I don't
on
think
those
so.
buildings?
I
I mean,
think-
everyone
I think
complains about Winchester Place. Everyone
Exactly.
hates
You're
Winchester
correct.
Place.
You are correct. Ever since, right, exactly.
Right.
And that as all screened and
it cer-
mechanical.
It certainly looks
But
weird
it's-
from different angles.
It
So,
does.
The train
so-
station is, we have a train station, you can see everything from the top.
That's true.
yeah. So, did you find screening?
He's been calling
I've
it
been
out
looking,
every time.
it's not, I don't think, in anything
Oh,
that's
okay.
really global. I mean, it's all over the place for
It's on, yeah, it's on. I mean,
wireless and.
Yeah.
So why don't we,
Solar and lighting. and-
so I mean, so obviously we need to have mandatory screening of mechanical equipment.
Which is kind of what we did have in,
Well,
It,
kind of.
you had to
Kind of.
incentivize before, you're right. When you had before, incentivize it, because you get, if you put screening, you can get more feet for that screening, and then presumably you're gonna hide the stuff behind it, so you can get 4 feet there too. My worry is that this change, I mean, if what you're trying to do is make the screening more explicit, you can take some of the language about not visible from public way and put it there.
Mhm.
It's just that together with, I read this as saying,
You get a bonus.
whether, you get a bonus regardless, but we'll let you figure out how you use it. And that's not what I think you want,
That's not what we
it sounds like, okay.
What if you just said together with necessary screening to make the mechanical equipment not visible from any public way may exceed the height requirement by 4 feet, so you just add that.
Yeah, but I'm not
necessary.
sure we were wanting. Were we
Like-
wanting a bonus?
It's not a bonus, it's a question of whether you would want to allow off of a by right height and a, you know, essentially a, yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know about a bonus. It's-
well,
I
if
think
you, if-
using the word necessary still begs the question, necessary according to what?
To what,
Um,
exactly, and what's the standard that makes the necessity?
And what I guess maybe you're looking for is rather than, you can either just not mess with this part of it, you can still make the other changes for the state building height piece. Or you say, mechanical equipment such as heating, venting, and air conditioning units
Must
may
be-
exceed the height requirement by up to 4 feet, provided such equipment, et cetera,
Sufficient- or
is
sufficient
sufficiently screened to make the mechanical, make it not visible from
Yeah,
the public way. I think you just need to flip the clauses,
Thank you.
basically.
Yeah.
But
grab it.
I'm not sure,
Is that, I just want to make sure it's what you mean still. That's,
okay, so we're saying they can exceed if they screen. That's what we really want to say.
Or would we rather just say that you have to screen and come back to it?
I'd rather
Take
say
out the
you have to
mechanical
screen.
equipment out, and then come back to it with screening.
No, it's a, you may exceed by 4 feet if it's screened, isn't that what?
We may exceed by up to 4
Up to 4
feet if it's screened.
But as of right now, if they don't screen it, they can put it anywhere below. We want all mechanical equipment screened in the
That's what.
CBD.
Right, but
well, no, that's two different things. This is only if you're going up above
Yeah.
the,
So we're missing,
Above that limitation.
I'm sorry.
we want the mechanical equipment screened, whether
Yes.
it's on grade, if it's on the roofs, we want it screened
Correct.
from
Right.
all public ways. And that is not in the center business district zoning right now.
I think, yeah, I would just be a little careful. I'm not sure, I have to look back at the notice. I'm not sure you've noticed for that. 'cause
No, we
that's-
haven't, that's what I'm saying, so
That's-
what we
that's
should
probably
do
different there.
is,
But we,
I think we don't need to say the mechanical can exceed the 4 feet at this time, because it's not mandatory in the zoning as of right now that it's
The
screened.
screening portion's not meant.
Yeah, and we come back in the fall with a screening clause, put back into.
I see, so you just revert to the language additionally screening.
No, we just take the mechanical equipment can't exceed the roof line and take it out at this point. And then we come back in the fall with a screening clause.
wait, why can't we do mechanical equipment we can require mechanical equipment be screened in this text?
Exactly, you can,
So why can't
Only
we?
to get the additional, only,
Only for exceedance of height exceedance.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's fine, because
That's the section.
that gives us a protection we don't have right now.
Okay,
you're saying start there, and I think,
Come
Heather, your
back.
point is,
Yeah, I
in the
mean, we-
fall, go further and say all mechanical equipment above the
Right.
roof line should be screened.
Right.
Well, you're saying all mechanical equipment anywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
On-
in
It's
there.
20 feet, 50 feet.
Yeah, which we do, we have some
Yeah.
things on the grade.
On the grade, it has to be screened, I think.
Yeah.
Right out
Yeah.
here, town halls.
Yeah.
All got-
So how about additionally, screening of mechanical equipment such as may exceed the height requirement by up to 4 feet if it is screened so as to be not visible from any public way? That's
what
the
he said.
gist of what we want?
Yeah,
That's
that's what I'm
what you
trying
were
to
saying,
write out in my
yeah.
notes here before I lose it.
Okay, so let me interrupt you and make you mess up your notes.
Okay.
No, I was just joking, go ahead.
Is, yeah, okay, so I'll send that to you, Brian, so we're not.
The benefit of, is just to try to encourage screening, is to incentivize screening those mechanical.
Well, I mean, the way we have it
More
right now,
additional
it's the screening of necessary, right now it says additionally, screening of necessary mechanical equipment such as HVAC units may exceed the requirement by up to 4 feet.
The
That's what's
screening of it.
correct.
Mhm.
Right,
The screening may, yeah, correct.
which
The screening may
incentivizes it a
exceed-
different way, because if otherwise, it can't exceed on its own, but it's screening can, and if it's screening can.
So that's
then
why I
the
think it
higher.
still does, I mean, I think we
Still-
did it pretty much spot on the first time.
Yeah, I know, we
don't
spent
know.
some time doing that,
Well, I don't,
as I remember.
So what is it that
I'm not
this,
sure you need this additional language I'm suggesting, is my point. You could either go back, revert to it, or say, do what I'm saying, but
if we keep the existing language, it can't go up except if it's screened.
exactly.
So we're not
The
actually-
What are
requirement's
we
there.
changing?
So we're not changing anything, except to say visible
So we're
from
pulling
public
8 and
way.
9 is the.
No, no, no,
no,
no,
because
no.
there's other changes to 8.
There's other changes.
Sorry, 9 talks about HVAC specific, okay.
So the question is, when they say screening, does it imply screening from a particular place? I mean,
From any public, well, you mean in the addition, in the existing language?
yeah, in the existing language, does it say, it could be screening from,
The
2
neighbor.
feet away?
Whatever, or whatever. I mean,
So maybe we need to put public way. Unless that limits it so that,
Limit it?
Yeah, that could potentially limit it
So
from
we
a
would
rear,
wanna
from a
screen
rear
from, like, the
neighbor,
neighbor
or someone who has some, I mean, think about
Yeah.
potentially all these new condos with rooftop decks, and
Right.
you wouldn't really wanna be,
so we
Looking
don't
at
want
that.
screening from public way, we want to screen it from,
abutters or,
Any view?
yeah, screen
Screening.
from view, I mean. you
Screen
could-
from.
no, because if you're flying a drone at 400 feet, you're not going to screen from
Yeah.
that.
At the train station.
So
That's why the
abutters,
train is why I actually chose public way, because the train is a public way.
Just say screened.
Yeah.
You don't really have to.
well, if somebody may say, well, it doesn't say what I have to what extent I need to screen. it.
Well, I mean, this is where you're
It could be
def,
subject,
your existing definition actually is a little bit easier on this score, because the screening is what you're measuring. And the building inspector can walk up, can look at the building, or can get up on top of the building
Mhm.
and measure, is your screening 4 feet, or is your screening 8 feet? It may not actually screen, it may not adequately screen from the angles you want it to. That's why you probably need a different, if that's what you're after, you need a different
That's what
requirement
we're after.
Yeah.
to decide what you're gonna screen, but I don't think you can do it in the
So-
max building height.
Okay, so then it sounds like another section that would be talking about that
So we're
first
going to have to
fall.
define the views
That's
from
what we're talking about
which we
screening.
want things to be screened from.
Yeah.
For fall. I think
Yeah.
we're missing
Right.
screening, I think it's really
Yeah,
needed,
yeah.
so.
Okay, so Brian, your to-do list.
So I
fall
think it's just gonna be,
defines-
You sketched a few minutes ago.
so well, I'm not sure actually, because now, because this, what I sketched a few minutes ago assumed that you only cared from public way. So I just don't have all the, I may not have enough of the context here. I think you're probably better off on the last sentence, forget you're doing other things in Article 9, but assuming, just focusing on that last sentence, additionally screening of necessary mechanical equipment, you may be better off leaving it as is. You're just
Okay.
measuring the screening and not striking screening of necessary,
Mhm.
not inserting the bolded language.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, everybody's okay with the rest, right? The elevator, penthouses, et cetera?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 10, 11, and 12. Let me just talk about these in unison a little bit. I think the idea for each of these is to have in the required submissions for different kinds of review action, not just site plan, a description or you're basically showing the rooftop equipment. So it's around,
I'll even jump in. It's not the verb illustrated I wanted, and it's not shown, and so you get these pictures, and the roofscapes are lovely, and then you see them built, and they're nasty
in there.
looking.
yeah, and so on Article 10, in Article 10, you do have a very specific list of submittals in the zoning bylaw, and it includes the utilities plan. So I think that one, it's an appropriate place to do that.
Yeah, agreed.
I have some questions about 11 and 12, because in 11 and 12, in 11, you're leaving applications for special permit up to the ZBA, to have rules and regs about the submittals. You don't call out anything else they need. It's not to the same level of detail as your,
To interrupt, so I was tasked with this.
yeah.
And this was outside of me telling the zoning board what they can put in their rules and regs. This was the most appropriate place, but I agree with you.
Yeah, so, I
But
mean,
hang
so it's
on.
just, I'm just raising a question that maybe the answer may be, yeah, we understand that, Mina, and that's what
We
we wanna do.
understand. We want to
But,
do it.
yeah, I mean, you're in the,
Have you
in-
seen their rules and regs?
I have not, I think
Could
I actually
you-
have some, well,
As town council, look at them sometime.
well,
They're
you know,
very thin.
well, whether or not they want to require, you're basically calling out, it's fine to do this particular one, and you may get pushback at town meeting.
But it's weird that out of all the things that we could be
Of all
calling
the
out
things
for
you're
the-
asking about, this is the one you've elevated, you've enshrined into the bylaw, the rest you're having. So,
So why wouldn't we do all these other,
drain it,
Right.
all the other plans?
I'm
that
not
we-
suggesting that on behalf of anybody, but I'm just saying, that is the obvious question that comes up from
Right,
this.
right,
is-
well, it's not,
I
one
still
doesn't
think
want
we
to
should.
be
I think we
bedeviled
should
by
go
it,
ahead.
but still,
Yeah,
you know.
It's just nasty,
I-
it's so.
It's
I think it
better-
is a good
consistency is-
requirement, I think everyone
consistency is
agrees it's a good requirement. It sounds like we could get the same potential, outcome with a joint meeting with the ZBA.
No, it won't happen anytime soon.
it has to be in the zoning.
Right, sorry. It's just
It's not a
pragmatic.
sorry, I'm just
It's
saying that,
pragmatic.
yeah, I mean-
It's
What,
pragmatic.
where was the list you mentioned also?
so I was saying that the one that you control, actually,
7316,
7316,
Yeah.
Yeah.
already has sort of a very detailed list, and so that one for Article 10, in
It's
here,
Article 11 you're talking about then?
Article 11 and 12 are the ones that sort of follow on from a requirement for the ZBA to
Yeah,
come
it's
up
more,
with.
yeah, it's a ZBA requirement having to do with site plan and special permit, whereas Article 10 on this sheet it's totally within our wheelhouse, and it's
Yeah.
our
It's
bylaw.
it's
It's
all
the
planned.
planning board, it's the center business district, so it makes sense because we're asking for all these other things, but we're asking it of ourselves. 11 and 12 are,
I'll say
Well, we
this.
review it though.
Yeah, we
But we
review
want
it, and we're frustrated, and.
no, he's just,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
he's
just calling out the
he's
questions.
just saying that it makes sense in
It
10.
may, it does, in
yeah.
the abstract, it makes
And,
sense.
you know,
In
but-
reality, let's get ourselves some illustrations here.
Yes.
Okay.
Just-
The one
The
little
real
nit
picture
then,
being
other
worth
than
1,000
illustrate
words.
rather than locate, which I said, I agreed with. 945, this comes up in a few places in the zoning bylaw, but maybe over time we can get rid of them. You predominantly call them the Board of Appeals, and then sometimes the word zoning slips in, and sometimes it doesn't, so it might,
We should
Just be
probably
consistent.
try to get consistent
Yeah.
on that.
Which way should we go?
well, I'm sort of trying to do a rough
Yeah, it's-
calculation of which one shows up more.
That's a
And-
fun
Like who's
exercise.
winning, yeah.
And zoning board of appeals shows up, 24 out of 129 times at 100, so 24 to 105, so you should stay with board of appeals for now.
Board of
Okay.
Appeals.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's- We,
It does say ZBA all over the place,
It probably does.
Yes.
So it's not,
but it,
Oh, we
there's no
get some
BA,
more
there's no
money
Board of
from-
Appeals. Yeah.
It used to be, Wade used to call it the VZA.
I remember that,
yeah.
yeah.
Board of
Boston still
Zoning
has-
Appeals?
Yeah.
he did.
BZA, which is used.
Boston, Cambridge still has that too, I believe, the BZA,
Yeah.
which confuses me.
Okay, it looks like we're wrapping up.
Yeah,
That's a-
so just Article 8 and 9, I don't know if you know any history on this, but it would be helpful, is when I was looking at this, because there are some issues that we're having, and this helps deal with a lot of that. This has been sitting on the books for a long time. Is
Mhm.
it just because it's using outdated building technology? Why a lot of these things, it was written the way it was, or do you, I mean, I know you don't know the history of this, but have
Right,
you
you
seen
mean
examples of
chimneys?
it? I was looking at like Lexington's and stuff in there, and I think it's because the way that elevators were constructed and the way that.
Are you saying
venting-
Lexington's doesn't have that, or does, or
Thi-
others?
This more mimics closer, I think, to what we changed it to, mimics closer to what.
So I think, I don't know when the last time the town did a global rewrite of the bylaw. If you're
It
looking
hasn't
spec-
happened in, I think, ever.
so
Oh, yeah,
let-
yeah, yeah.
here? No, it happened
was
recently.
Codified in about 2004,
Codified is-
I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different than
No,
the.
there was a rewrite, it was a.
Rewrite.
It was a,
It was a it was a
Some towns have
result.
done,
An
the reason I
overhaul.
ask is some towns have done global
Oh,
rewrites.
no, we're ready, I think,
Yeah.
but it's, it
Yeah.
went through something.
I'm not sure why it used that language, versus others. The advantage,
Structural features, that's like.
yeah, no,
we
it's,
don't-
if they seem outdated, the one advantage of some of the outdated ones is that they might have a meaning in older cases and so on, so, you know, you're right. I think everyone knows what a chimney is, I'm not sure,
Right.
in 2019, we all know what a ventilator looks like, et cetera, if that's what, that's the
But,
kind of thing.
yeah, ventilation is,
Yeah.
vents, but the other structural features, right, that's what's actually a catch in there.
It says
because-
usually carried above roofs, and so I don't know what,
Which,
that could be almost.
it could be anything. So I just found it, but then I went and looked at other ones.
Oh, and another wordsmith on Article 10,
Mhm.
in your boldface, it's where it begins the location of all. This is actually about illustration, not plan, so I would just say all rooftop equipment.
Should be illustrated.
Illustrated, yeah.
That's fine.
You don't have to say all again.
Oh, yeah, you could get rid of
Oh.
that, too. Well.
You can say rooftop equipment should be illustrated on all drawings, renderings,
That's
and
fine,
all.
you're
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
Well, tighten it up.
Simpler's better, yeah.
So,
agree.
to sum up this thing then, we're kicking out the sign motion, the movement of the sign bylaw. We are not doing Article 7, and we are pretty much in agreement on everything, except for, no, we did, you have all the notes. I didn't take,
I've been taking notes, I mean, Mina and I will have a conversation sometime
Yeah.
before,
so
well,
I think we're good
Can we have
then.
it tonight, before you leave, real quick? I think there's only two.
okay.
Um, Okay,
Really three.
I think we're done. How did that happen?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That would fall under the heading of amazing.
We're actually ahead of schedule now.
Let's keep going.
Right.
So tired.
So tired.
Exactly.
I can't even speak.
Do we have to wait at the 9:40 because it is a hearing for petition 387?
If you wanna do that, I could sit with him for 10 minutes.
Wait, we don't, we
What?
can't keep going.
Well, it's not a,
Have
not
you
that we have a
in here?
hearing, but I doubt anyone's coming for this petition.
They
We have a
said
big-
they weren't coming.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, they did say they
They
were.
weren't coming, but there might be people in the town who want to,
No.
okay. Well, our next, why don't we, well, thank you, Mina.
Thank you. Well, we can talk tomorrow.
Yeah, you can go back to the anonymity of the peanut gallery.
Oh, and tell me.
Well, I think I might just be leaving if that's okay.
Okay.
Do you have any
That's fine.
general sense of, since you're here in 30 seconds, how this friendly concept?
Yeah, since it came up, just, yeah, I know we're past it.
Any legal place?
There's not,
Any law?
the way I think of it, I mean, there may have an implication for how DHCD thinks about funding or other funding entities think about it. I don't know their funding regulations quite well enough to
Yeah,
say.
and that's the only thing I'm gonna look at.
But that's one issue. The way I usually think of it is in the same context as a friendly taking, meaning that the party that might have some right to object or sue over it is not going to, because everybody's in agreement of how it's going to proceed. So, using that same analogy, when the select board does a friendly taking, sometimes the friendly taking is because the friendly
wanna
party,
sell.
well, sometimes the
Yes,
friendly
it's
party
taken.
is only willing to be friendly took, I guess, friendly taken, thank you, I'm sorry, thank you, by the municipality for $100 million.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't sound that friendly, but it's something.
Right.
It's also sometimes it's a friendly taking for free, and so it's a different kind. I think in the 40B context, that's, the municipality is not going to object to giving
The
that
bare
zoning
bones
relief.
of the
The
project.
bare bones of the project, but under what conditions may or may not actually turn out to be.
And I
Well,
think,
right.
yeah.
What about this, I mean, we
So,
know there's this
but-
thing called the local initiative.
And that's a little different, yeah.
That's
That's a
different
lift.
from a friendly 40B.
Well, it's only in the sense, it's not necessarily that it's different from a friendly 40B, but this is where I'm saying that's the funding side of it, of what DHCD counts as funding differences. They've tried to incentivize towns and developers not to argue with each other, but to collaborate on projects. So that's one way that they may be doing that. I'm not
It's a
quite sure
concession
how
to
it works out.
basically say you can raise,
Yeah,
you can raise money.
I'd be surprised if they use the term friendly in that technical sense in those regulations. It might be with the consent, or if you can get a sign off from the
Right.
town that they approve, they support your application, or et cetera. That'd be the difference.
Do you think it's in the world of DHCD that they use the word friendly in their own documents?
I'm not positive that they do or not. I'd be a little surprised if it just seems so ambiguous that I wouldn't if I was them, but I'm not sure. I think it's more in the lexicon of just how people talk about friendly 40Bs
It's like-
versus contested ones of a developer is
Optics.
going to do this,
Right,
whether we want it or
that
not.
come hell or high
Yeah.
water.
So
And-
it
That's
sounds
what I
to me
thought it
like
was.
there's nothing out there. It's like,
I think it's
No,
just
it's
the
the
way you
difference
talk about
between,
it.
it's really the difference between a traditional going through mass housing or going through the LIP. I mean, that essentially is, and the question is, what is that difference? What I've gotten to so far is boiled down is the funding. That
Right.
is,
well, that doesn't make any difference to me, right?
no, we want to, of course, and that's why a
So-
lot of it's optics.
So we need to see what other things the lip gives us.
Yeah.
We don't want it to give us too much lip.
Yeah, I was waiting.
I was trying to
Audio.
work that out.
Ah, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
I got you closer to your time now, so.
Only by a couple of minutes.
Let's
Let's
go
go.
home. Yeah.
Okay, so we have before us petition number 3878, 24 Sergeant Road. Brian, you want to read your notes? Here.
Somewhere here. Oh, you haven't even here. Okay, so this is a special permit, 355, which means they're trying to construct an addition that will be located closer. In this case, it's the front and side property lines then permitted as of right. It's to widen and extend a one-car, single-story attached garage to an existing house. I didn't see any issues associated with the change based on the location and small scale of the addition. The neighbor at 26 Sergeant does not appear to be negatively impacted. The area towards the street's already paved. The addition will not seem any more imposing to the neighbor, even though the setback is planned for encroachment. I said that last sentence because this is one of those, does the setback really need to be encroached here? There's already a garage here. And when it came down to it, I I was not really swayed either way. I recommended favorable action, but this is kind of, I'd be more inclined to give favorable action if there was no garage and they're trying to put in a garage. But I really wasn't torn kind of either way in this one at all.
So could you bring up the street view?
We have a picture of it.
That's always helpful.
Right, but I may as well.
I wonder, yeah, I have the whole packet
Okay.
here.
Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah.
One thing I was thinking with this is, it's the same architect as we were just talking to about Everett, and I think if we say you can go 5 feet farther on this one, then they're gonna say, well, why this one and not the other one that we didn't like?
I mean, I didn't see this as an.
It's the same, I mean,
You can see what I'm saying, is like,
very similar,
it's very
I mean,
very
it's-
similar.
and it's also very different, but that was such a
I
heated
think it's
discussion,
more
and it's
of
the
doing-
same person that they're gonna.
It is weird. I mean,
Yeah.
I think in the big scheme of things, there's not a large impact here. However, you gotta, the question I was just like, why? I mean, do I really feel like this needs to happen? No, but
Well, I'm
And
gonna-
so
do
I'm
you wanna
talking
deny
about
it? I mean, like,
precedent.
It's a barely usable garage. You probably, if you drove your car in there, you probably have to crawl out through the back hatch to
We
actually
had
get.
one like, just like that in Medford, and we never parked a car in it, cause you couldn't.
Sure, but if you actually want to use it as a garage, then, I mean, I have a friend who has a very tight garage and
So here's
she
my
put a door
question.
into her
I'm
garage so she
focusing
can.
less on the width, which might be advantageous. I can't quite grasp what the depth is. I'm sure somebody knows the measurement.
It
But I
says,
really am not too
2.5
keen
feet.
on the, yeah. so Pushing
Yeah,
it
well, it
forward,
looks
and then
silly.
with the little roof. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very different concept
mean, you can tell
from this
that-
basement look
Yeah.
of, seeing a basement, I guess it's a cellar. But of that garage as it was designed originally. So I'm okay with widening it, but I'm really not very happy with the push out, which also is, I think some of us have articulated more than once, creating that projection of
Yeah.
garage toward the street.
I hadn't even gotten to that, the design.
Yeah, I mean, it
Let's get to
doesn't
that.
come
Well,
out,
cause you guys weren't there for when we were arguing with him
Yeah,
about
I was not there.
pushing a
Yeah.
garage
It
into the
adds-
side
But
setback.
that, look, okay, guys, here we are on the screen.
yeah,
That's
it
really
adds
a new barnacle.
2.5 feet to the
Excuse me.
When the roof
depth
doesn't
of the
match.
garage.
Right, the roof, it's like out of, like, ew.
Well,
That's, to me,
well, I'm guessing that, or is the roof,
so
what's
just
there?
widen it, but don't.
It looks, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any real change there.
And it's, remember, you're not, except for the roof design right now, I mean, you're in 2D. The only place you have any sense of perspective is on the roof. But this is actually pushing forward, so,
yeah, if you go to the next page,
It's 2.5 feet.
A3.
More forward.
right, which is pretty substantial in terms of shadow and just.
Yeah, so here, if you zoom in on this one, you can see that they're making the actual depth of the garage deeper by 2.5 feet. And then the roof projects forward even more than that by,
Look at that.
I'm guessing, another
Yeah,
2 feet, maybe, guessing?
I just find it
So,
really
that just looks
Um,
kind of
If they
awkward.
need more depth, they should push it towards the
Back.
back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
thank you, Heather Von
Keep
Mary.
it face.
Because
We've been
And
saying
actually,
we
what
don't
they
want
could do
them
is do a
projecting.
flat.
Right.
They could do
go
it flat
back
and
into
actually wrap their
right,
deck
exactly, use it for
around.
the deck, for Pete's sake.
Because it would come out almost the same height, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not okay with going out the full width, because it does start infringing on the setback.
Mhm.
They could actually, if I grab my sheet back again,
That was a good idea.
they've got, they're going from 17 feet to 12 feet.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if they made it wider by 2 feet, that would be, I mean, I don't know what they want to do with it, but 2 feet would be maximum allowed by current setbacks. I'd be happy with that. I'm not happy with going over biting into the setback,
Mhm.
because it is a tight
Who
neighborhood.
wants to make a motion?
Well,
I can't.
I know.
I understand that.
I don't even know, what are we making a motion on?
Well, I do wish.
Favorable with conditions or denied?
Denied with reasons, or?
I'm unfavorable at this point. I'm not happy with this thing, especially the impact on the street and the neighborhood character, because this is going to be, it's a line.
It'll be there.
Yeah.
It really is a line with the setback
plane.
right now. It's a plane, thank you. Yeah, better language. It
Yes.
is like, It's not like, but I didn't get it. But anyway, maintaining the plane of the facade it's beautiful. It's a nice house. And that addition, it really detracts. So I guess,
So let's see, so,
we're somewhat different, I don't know where we are, maybe we have to vote on it in two parts, because I'm much more concerned about the projection toward the front. I could live with the side if that gives their car, open their doors and make it useful, but I appreciate the other issues of, but they are, each one's a special permit, because each one should be considered as itself.
Yeah, just as a standalone
so the
project.
problem, so let me try to list the comments that we've got.
Well, they're different, okay, one of the points, one of them's the projection outside the, plane of the
Plane of the
front
house.
facade of the house.
They are changing the front setback, though. The required is 25, the existing's 23, and they're moving it forward. They are going into the front setback.
That's what I'm saying.
So
Right.
they shouldn't touch the front setback.
Wait, no, the existing, the front setback is due to the front of the house. It's to the porch.
But isn't that the same line?
No,
Oh.
no. The,
Well, that's 21.
yeah, but if you look at the house, it has a projecting, I don't know what kind of I don't know what you call
Yeah,
it.
they're going to it, though.
Bye-bye.
That's 18 to the steps.
So here,
So here's the-
21
If you look at the existing,
is to here.
And you have 23.2 is existing,
yeah, but look where it's measured
Yeah.
from. It's probably measured from right there.
and that's what they're drawing their garage to.
No, the garage is still,
No, it's
Back of
going, it
that.
looks like it's going from, yeah, so it's, well, this is weird.
it's, if you look at sheet, A3,
Yeah, I
Bump
know.
out.
They measured
I
as
feel about
23.2, look at look at the garage addition,
That's the new addition.
23.2, the actual setback's 25 feet.
Right.
Right, so
Right,
we-
right, and right now it's 21.8.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I put unaltered. This 23.2 that should actually be,
21.
it's 21 and it's not being it's not, the front setback is not changing.
They're just going into the front setback.
They're going in,
beyond.
that is true, but the front setback is 20, it's.
But they're
20
adding something new that goes into the setback.
They are, but the measurement of the front setback is not changing.
Right.
The measurement of the front setback is 21.8, which
But you're
goes-
measuring something different, so,
No, I know, but
So
if you
they're
say,
allowed
if you ask a simple question, what is the front setback? It's one answer, it's 21.8, it's not 23.2.
Right.
They currently are
They currently are non-conforming, and they are not making it any worse. Yes, they're introducing a new
non-element.
element
Yeah.
into the setback, but you can't,
Wait.
the front setback is not getting any worse than it currently is.
I'm not going to agree with
But not,
you.
it
I
does
don't-
not.
I don't-
Because
I don't follow you at all. I
Okay,
don't think that's right.
The shortest number is 21.8.
No, I know what you're saying, but I don't agree with you.
this is where the 21.8 is measured from, correct?
Correct. This is
Okay.
this is the existing, yep.
This is the 2.5 feet they're claiming, but this does not include the hangover of the roof, which does go beyond
Overhang.
this. The overhang, thank you. So if you go to the side elevation,
Oh, good point, you have,
okay,
Well.
here, you can, I didn't capture it, see the roof, it actually goes beyond that point, which is,
This is, so then this
so
looks like
this
it's
is
being-
actually it is,
It is, so I'm wrong. So,
Yeah.
but it's because, so if this is 21.8 to the edge of the house, this looks like it's, 20, let's say it's a foot.
Let's say it's a foot.
Let's just, for whatever, it's
I thought
it's
you
more.
can't overhang your foot with the setback.
You can, I believe it's a fifth into the setback.
But I wanna say that.
But either way, this still is,
Without that roof thing, it's too much, it's just out of the main plane of the.
We haven't been
main
wanting
facade of
garages
the house.
sticking
Okay.
forward.
that's an easy comment that we've been very consistent with,
So-
we can keep.
The
Right.
design of the
Yeah,
original
keep
garage is
that.
actually very charming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
okay,
They're
so,
stone and they're gonna put
um,
concrete here.
Exactly.
front
Yeah,
of,
materials, they're
Yeah.
bringing, it should remain stone.
By the way, anybody who wants to look at the assessor's map, it's really a uniform line of
Mhm.
these facades
Right.
on the.
proposed
Which gives us all the
garage,
So maybe
right,
that's
if you
something
want
we
to
should
retain
say.
it, yeah.
proposed
As you can
project
see from the assessor's map, there's a uniformity to that.
projects outside of the front plane of the house.
Yep.
I wonder what everyone else's garages look like, I didn't do this.
The neighborhood, what do we want to say about the neighborhood? It has a uniform
If
front
you-
plane?
Yes,
Look at
yes,
the
if you look at
assessor's
the,
map.
the
Street,
front plane.
it has a
you have
street
consistency.
setback, or,
Yeah.
an unofficial
Can you
uniform
do
street
street
set.
view and
Oh,
see-
yeah, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Brian,
Garage things.
Can you see
The-
what the neighbors' garages look like?
the neighboring,
Refer to the assessor's map. When-
the assessor's map,
Yeah, I would rather see the whole garage done in stone.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah, it says
veneer
concrete
stone.
and siding, I think,
So they're getting rid of the stone,
yeah.
which they can do concrete, they just, I would rather see them, do veneer stone.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
yeah,
all
see,
done.
that matches.
Yeah,
Very consistent, yeah.
Look
That's
at how
nice.
sweet those are.
yeah, it's
That's
really.
for the charm of the neighborhood.
And as consistent with the neighborhood, all of the garages are aligned with the face of the
Yeah,
house.
once you
Front
see them,
facade.
you really see that was the,
Look at one side, one side's completely different than the other side.
yeah, we don't want to, yeah.
No, they are.
They don't have garages on that
They don't
side.
have
None of these have
No one
garages.
has garages,
Yeah,
everyone else
no,
has
none of
like these big,
projecting garages. There are
There's
no-
one.
Here's
there's
the- here's
another
the house
one.
again,
There it is.
Right.
except it's under.
Garages are,
All right, so
So we're gonna
And
say not consistent with the neighborhood.
Okay, so I have neighboring houses as shown on the assessor's map,
and Google.
as illustrated on the assessor's map, show a uniform shared frontal plane including both house and garage,
Street, and you could say street view, shows the same thing.
as illustrated on the assessor's map and,
And on street view.
and street view. Choose your favorite,
Pick your poison.
okay, what else do we want to say
The
on there?
materials are also inconsistent.
Wait, hold on a sec, let's keep doing, I want to say, I don't want to say it violates the side setback, that's strong language. It encroaches,
It's on the side setback.
into the required side setback by 2 feet, 2.1, 2.4 feet. Oh, 2.5 feet.
So on the one on Everett that.
you say unnecessarily?
Unnecessarily, or, we don't have to say unnecessarily, encroaches into the required size setback by 2.5 feet, which, it
That's why I was
just
bringing it
really
up.
ruins the balance of that property, because all the properties are, yeah,
No one has it in the street, so
feet,
like we go and say, this is okay, everyone's gonna do it.
which,
Yeah, no, it's a huge issue.
which,
Side and-
Yeah, that's an
Roads
important
on
point,
their
we
noses.
don't want to set a new a direction. Don't
Which-
use the word
which-
precedent that's legal, just say we don't want to see.
which
the-
negatively
pattern
affects
that
the, so I have encroaches into the required side setback by 2.5 feet, negatively impacting the neighbor. Is that, do we want to say more than that? I know you said,
Well, the neighbor's gonna say it doesn't impact.
yeah, but we don't, the neighbor, the current neighbor may say that, the next neighbor may not be happy. We're thinking, 50 years forward.
When we say front plane, can we also say the side plane?
How do we want
Because
to,
all those other garages are in line with the,
okay,
You
Side
can
plane
say
of the houses
projections
too.
outside of the plane of the front and side facade.
outside of the front and side planes, front and
that's part of
side
what makes it goofy
planes
looking.
of the house.
They extended the house over the garage.
I thought maybe they were gonna do that, and I was thinking, how are they gonna do that with that roof line that's curved?
Proposed project
And do it in that appearance.
projects, that's really hard to say. Proposed project projects outside of the front and side planes of the house, unlike any of the neighboring, which, criminy.
What? That house is they're almost like, little gingerbread houses.
Okay, so then we have the materials are inconsistent.
materials are inconsistent with the house and the neighborhood.
Consistent
Stone should be
with
used throughout
the house and the neighborhood
as
as
stone
stone
instead of concrete should be used.
should be used instead, or some sort of a stone facing, because they could do a
Oh, yeah,
a
stone,
faux stone facing.
stone.
I mean, it looks like a rubble wall right now, so as stone,
Yeah.
stone
I'm trying to
should
do
be
the, you know,
presented?
Instead of, yeah, just say stone instead of
Yeah.
concrete.
Well, and
that
wide,
leaves it
so our
open.
old driveway
Doesn't-
was the
it could be
same.
stone facade, it could be.
That
Stone should be
down.
used instead of
You couldn't even park
concrete.
the car in the driveway because it was so
Also,
narrow.
what else is there? The style, do we want to say the style is
You couldn't
inconsistent?
even get out.
Do we have some few words on the
On the
architectural style,
We
please?
said the materials were inconsistent.
It's actually a
Materials.
planned, I think it's a planned division.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, it
No,
would be
this-
helpful if you do point out that this is a uniformly planned subdivision, built, it's not just planned,
It's
it's
built.
subdivision.
From 1930s.
Okay, this is a uniformly planned and constructed subdivision, and the proposed changes are incompatible
Yeah, good.
with the character, the existing character,
The character and materials.
Right,
with the character and materials,
of, right,
and materials
of,
Of the neighborhood.
of the existing neighborhood.
of the existing neighborhood.
So
Okay.
you're right, I don't know how one of those cars could have got in there.
They probably bumped this out at some point to be able to park the car.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Cut down like the other one.
All right, there's,
condense this a bit.
so these are all notes essentially, saying why there will be unfavorable action.
Okay, so I have notes, I should put the
Did you
period.
do materials and roof style of the addition?
Do we want to say roof style?
We would say materials and roof style are inconsistent with the
Yeah.
house.
With the house?
Yeah, that roof is way,
I'm gonna put that
put
separate.
that in strong terms.
Or
Okay.
the proposed
The
materials.
roof style, and I think the door as well. The door looks more like a barn door.
It's meant to be a barn door, then it should be kept the same it is.
Does it look like a barn door, or am I just making
They're
that
trying
up?
to make it look like arts and crafts.
Right. Okay, so let's just say
It
that.
should also be all, it should be all stone.
Yeah, we've
Yeah, we
got
said
that.
that.
The roof style, the roof and door style are what? Are incompatible?
Hold on, let me look at the picture of the actual, because in the drawing, it looks like it is, but when you look at the house, it's not the same style of the actual house.
Uh,
The actual door that's there is it better.
Yeah.
Let's see, the actual, well, it's obviously a replacement door. It looks like it's an aluminum door. This was probably originally wooden.
Oh, for sure.
But-
Um,
It's the roof and the door style are not compatible with the existing house?
And the
That's-
Yeah, keep it
the
simple.
materials, because it's
We haven't,
concrete.
yeah, we already
Oh,
have
you
the
have that?
Yeah,
material.
we're just talking
The materials are
architecture
inconsistent.
Something.
Yeah, you're going to barn style,
with the existing architectural style.
although it does match their front door, but I can't tell what their front door actually is.
Okay, so here's what I've
in the
got.
Picture.
And I have 5 bullet points because I combined a few. This is a uniformly planned and constructed subdivision, and the proposed changes are incompatible with the character and materials of the existing neighborhood.
Why don't we say the proposed
The
garage?
plane?
Just to say the
Yeah.
proposed garage.
Is the-
Proposed garage is incompatible,
Shutters on
is incompatible. Okay, this is a uniformly planned and constructed subdivision, and the proposed garage is incompatible with the character and materials of the existing neighborhood. Neighboring houses, as illustrated on the assessor's map and street view, show a uniform shared frontal plane, including both house and garage. The proposed project projects, it's the proposed garage, not project. Garage projects outside of the front and side planes of the house. It encroaches into the required side setback by 2.5 feet, negatively impacting the
Neighbors.
the neighbor.
Or the abutter.
The direct abutter. The materials are
You
in,
better say direct abutting a house, since if the abutter does, is a person.
the
abutter
direct,
doesn't seem to
or,
care.
or just not the direct abutter, because let's just say is the abutting property.
Good, there.
Abutting property. The materials are inconsistent with the house and the neighborhood, as stone should be used instead of concrete. The roof and door style are incompatible with the existing
Or
architecture.
veneer stone on concrete, they can do it that way, I don't have a problem with that.
That's right.
And the
As
finished face should be
the
stone.
finished, thank you, the finished face should be stone rather than concrete.
Well, stone in concrete, no, it's stone embedded in concrete, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it should be,
It's kind of cool.
Well, you can just say match the stone in
the
concrete.
finished face should match the existing,
Materials.
match the existing stone and concrete facade, or the existing, it should, the finished face should match the existing face. Boom.
Yes,
Do that.
okay,
And we don't have to say what it is,
that's fine.
because one would claim that's not concrete, that's mortar.
It's, eventually they try to purge it a little,
Yeah, it looks like it's actually the
so
below
if you
ground
actually
version.
don't want to match it, you really would.
Yeah, okay, so do I need to read those again? Are we, okay, so the question is, we're gonna
So make
vote?
Unfavorable, I really don't care for that.
Make it- For these, for the comments, just.
Wow, they just put an awful lot of stuff on that stone, didn't they? Yeah, they covered it with a lot of,
So I don't know if that's the right thing to say that, I just think it
Yeah.
should be stone finish.
Instead of matching.
Just
okay,
stone finish.
so the finished face should, be stone,
Yeah.
period.
That's gonna be a lot of concrete that's gonna be exposed.
Stone, yeah, that's gonna be horrific. Okay,
You could actually do a really cool stone wall.
One could.
so we have a motion, someone is gonna provide us with a motion?
Unfavorable action.
Uh,
Where's an unfavorable?
Maureen,
It looks like an
unfavorable
addition coming forward from the
action due to the following,
country thing.
and Brian, I will send you my text.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second from Betsy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's five
So
not.
consistent on that street, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Okay, I will send this to you
Yeah, run down that
directly.
one.
It's a
It's
pretty
cute.
street. I know it's a street.
Okay, so we are now near the witching hour, whatever it's called. Action items.
So I have to get some language from the select board regarding the warrant articles about municipal housing trust, so we can review that
Yeah.
if we wanna I don't know if we can technically co-sponsor, considering it's not gonna be one of our, well, it's not gonna be one of our articles.
Yeah, but we could.
Yeah, we could,
Oh, we
yeah.
definitely
But
we
he's saying
definitely
it
could.
hasn't been
We-
put out.
It wasn't listed as one of our potential articles, so I don't know if, I'll look into it, I don't
Okay.
know.
Question is, do we have,
It's not zoning, they would, I mean, no, it was.
I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah, we don't have to do it at that hearing.
Right.
We'll
Yeah,
do
no,
it at
you're
their
right,
hearing.
So we could do that, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can still
Uh,
support it.
okay,
Look again at the number of economic development positions in other comparable towns, how big is the department, how many people are in it? Meeting for the 12th is
Oh,
the,
hang on. Oh, I don't know.
keep going. Well, meeting for next week, we wanna talk, updates on Washington and Swanton.
Thing-
240,
Not just updates, it's actually, we could do some direction on what we.
things we want out of the site, is what we
Because
want.
you'll
on-
be having this dialogue with some unknown person or
Um,
team.
Before we get to there, there's also, I have this long thing about how we want to talk to FinCom about a half-time ZEO and a half-time Economic Development Director. And we're going to reach out to Ruthie, who is our point of contact from FinCom, and who should be doing that.
She's doing the write-up for the planning board.
Is that something that Brian should do, I should do? Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, Brian.
all right.
I'll tell you what, I'll just send you my entire notes from this evening, and then,
It's still, well, okay, we'll keep going here, you know, get
Okay,
in
sure.
contact with Ruthie from FinCom,
That's what that
when we
is?
can go to their meeting.
I know.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Oh, it's not like air conditioning?
Just let us know when that is.
I think they said it's on the 18th.
Okay.
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 Brian, you want to continue?
Fall town meeting,
It goes down to the box.
so fall town meeting, one is, the 7.3 inclusionary housing.
Mhm.
for any of the things we wanted to do in GBD 2 and 3, we wanted to potentially revisit in the Center Business District.
Mhm.
And the other was the screening of mechanical equipment. Those are the two things that we want to require that. Those are the two things that are getting added to this,
To our
fall, to
potential.
the fall 19 articles.
And-
Attractions.
Right.
Okay,
And you also have on our agenda, I think we have an open agenda sitting around for the select board, which we,
mhm.
right, and on that is the signs.
Signed by law to
Right,
the
like
planning
that.
board,
So,
SB
we're
joint
supposed to
meeting.
coordinate with the.
Really, I think we just turn it over to them and walk.
Yeah,
Sign.
and then I have that we're gonna get the final draft of our articles by the next meeting, which is next week.
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk with Mina very briefly and get those out before the end of the week.
Right.
And then the last, are you done with
Yep.
your list? So
I'm done.
I just want to throw out that we do have this kind of flux we're in of the project on Main Street, across from the grocery store. And I believe you confirmed that it was not taken up at the zoning board.
Yes, it got continued,
Continued-
I guess, is it?
Is it, when's it coming up?
Yeah,
Is it coming up again?
Their next
The
meeting
18th.
is the 18th. Is
Yeah.
it actually coming back then?
it's continued to the moment. I don't know if it's actually going to be heard, meaning
Okay.
it could, like, they always
So-
just continue it 1 month.
I know, I can't be there. The letter's great, but it really, I think the time has come, given the importance of that building
Yeah.
for this board,
And where it
to have
is, yeah.
somebody explaining, and I can't be there, so, just explaining to a ZBA that really doesn't have a Brian sitting at the table. They really don't. I mean, we have to visual, some of us have been in the room, and there's no one there. And explain how what that letter really means, and explain how we feel, how strongly we feel that they
Mhm.
just
That's a good point, Marty.
they know how to do traffic studies, they know how to do, water perk tests and all that stuff, but we really need to bring in design and get that project to the point where right now it's like you see the drawings that we just saw for that, it's just like lines. But even if you like the lines, which we didn't, but this, sort of shapes, that's only halfway there. If you really want a good project, you've got to look at another level of, to understand what's going to get built. So, I don't know, if maybe, Tia, would you be willing? Again, I would go if I were.
I'm sorry, I was busy.
Do you want someone to go to the meeting on
ZBA
Monday?
meeting on March 18th.
It's not this coming
It's a
week.
Monday.
Oh.
I will see if I'm available. I do not know.
18th. So, I guess there's no point in answering now, but if you could put it on your calendar, that would be really appreciated. And your chair, I guess, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, it's not inappropriate, it's just a question of,
Availability.
what does
No,
18th look like?
understood.
Yeah.
The
let me-
next night is master plan, so it's not a real heavy-duty thing, I don't think, for that next night. I don't think it's.
So I will put,
It
Yeah,
wouldn't be a
no.
horrible week to do the.
No, it'll be a short meeting on the 19th. However, after that, it's not gonna be short, because we're having our hearing after. I
But we
know.
did schedule the hearing for 8:30, and I really don't think the hearing should, famous last words, I don't think.
No, I mean, I think there'll be people that are interested in what
Anyway,
we're doing.
The real
but-
point
Well,
here,
yeah.
that I'm really concerned about that being a decent-looking building. So important
Hmm.
across from
No,
the grocery store.
we're all in
Yeah.
agreement.
Mhm. Exactly. I know what makes
And the
it,
ZBA can
Yeah.
hold
Yeah.
its cards.
So those were all the,
And then just I'd say, like, as soon as we get through Springtown meeting, I guess it has to be after that, but it's time to meet with the ZBA. As Mina rightly says, they have no, look at all our guidelines for our CBD. There's nothing like that
Well,
for the entire
it
GBD.
it certainly makes
delivery.
sense after, or at least leading up to town meeting
Maybe,
for,
they don't have money, they don't have budget, so somehow we've gotta help them get to the point where they can review projects that are, for which they're the larger scale projects. They have no
yeah, well,
method.
yeah,
They have no method.
I know, because, well.
well, we can only suggest.
Either that or we
Nobody's
need to
suggested at this point, so I think.
Right, no, it's,
or to figure out
Let's
some,
be
some,
positive, let's not be negative.
no, exactly, or trying to figure out, some other collaborative way in
I
which we
think
can
that
do
the
that.
collaboration is the important part,
And
yeah.
I think that's where it needs to be.
Okay, we
So
have,
do you think you could make it on the 18th?
I do not know today. I have put it on my calendar, but I do not know yet, whether I will,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.